news and current affairs emanating from the biggest stories of the week. And there's no bigger story, of course, anywhere in the world than the COVID virus and the havoc it is wreaking. Today we're going to focus on the economic impact it has made, the social interventions that have been put in place, and also the case for lifting the lockdown, if indeed there is one. It's going to be a packed show. Stay tuned. So you're welcome back, and as usual, I always say it's an interactive show. We do this show together. So for those of you who want to get in touch with us, you can do so via our WhatsApp line 0549 986 996 0549 986 996. That is our WhatsApp line. For those of you who prefer Twitter, you can get me on at City973. That is the station's official handle. The hashtag is the big issue. Or you can reach me on my own personal handle, Godfred Akuto Boafo at East Sportsman, with the same hashtag, the big issue. We're also streaming live on Facebook, so you can go to the CCTV Facebook page and watch us, or you can go to the City FM Facebook page as well and watch us from there. You can also leave your comments and your questions there. Always remember to keep the language civil. That is the only rule that we have for our social interactions. And for those of you who will not catch the show live but want to still keep up with us, you can always watch a playback of us on YouTube via our CityTube channel. So CITITUBE, that is the name of our YouTube channel. You can find all the videos, all the clips, all the playbacks that you need regarding the big issue and any other program that you might like on 97.3 City FM and on City TV. Okay, I will introduce my guest in a bit, but let's start the conversation with the economic impact of the lockdown so far. And a lot of Ghanaians have been impacted, both in the informal sector and the formal sector. We've seen the government trying to mitigate some of these difficulties over the past 3 weeks. So in the course of the week, my colleague Kujajiman went into town and came back with this report. After that report, I will initiate a discussion with two academics. After that, I will then continue with two politicians, and then we'll move on from there.
Because of the nation problem, so we are here to help the nation. I mean, the directing traffic small, and then the brothers, they touch their heart, and then they help us something small to help on ourselves for food side.
Between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., you will find David Atta, a father of two, at the intersection at the Achimota overhead in Accra. This is what the coronavirus pandemic has reduced him to.
I don't want to visit just house like that, no food, no nothing. That's why I come out myself to come and job small. Then at the end of the day, I get something small to help there. I get two children too. Sometimes you get small. Then at the end of the day, when you get something small like 20, 30 Ghana to help. Sometimes you go get somebody where maybe sometimes they see you for roadside, they're touching hard, if you prepare something fine for you, and then at the end of the day, if you get 50 cedis, after that, you take it.
Have you heard that government through the Ministry of Gender is sharing food?
Sometimes it's true, we are here and then sometimes they feel can't dash us some food, but it not be too much, not be any days. Sometimes if you come today, maybe we are here more than 2 days. If you don't saw anything, there's no any food again. If you come today, 2 days, no get water. I let the people do their help out for the street.
Others are using creative ways of plying the not so noble trade.
We are fair puzzles to get something little to survive ourselves, so that if the system is okay, the president. Today, if I will talk, we get like 15 cedi. Yes, 15 cedi. Actually, the sun too is burning, but we are on it to survive, to get something to provide them, so that you bath, you need clothes to wash our things, water the things, so that you'll be safe.
Well, in the midst of all the hardship, it is not a man's world after all.
lockdown went na ma bibia wa ye di mi nya aduane kwa bi cha kwa come dem na mi gina on me mba so wo fia me pe bibi kakra dia de eda come.
Let's move away from Achimota and now to the rich roundabouts.
Two city, 1 city, a boa 100, boa so 200, not their money.
Ata hits the street in the company of a 5-year-old granddaughter.
At the Kwame Nkrumah circle around the VIP bus terminal, the situation is even worse. All these guys behind me are begging for money to buy something to eat. Let me get close to one of them. He is called Kwame. Kwame, mahu se usre ubisika no mauska.
Mr. Niska. In fact, ya share program na ekoso na ye hu bija. Nti ama ho kire abaye nso, especially we the Kubolo boys na ne guys na ye wo mu no. Bibia ba de Ghana ha. Ye Kubolo for no ye be kwa hye ma. Ama ade no astarte. Ansa na obia mpanifo ni nyina.
Kwame ansa na lockdown yi beba no. Na de adwuma na wo ye.
Me ba cha na me driver ni Odana station or from Kaneshi station. Ona me driving. Now so Sunny say yentimi nko baby and me say me adwuma kododo wa. Sunny say yentimi nko lonjani nti amama adwuma na abo me. Ti ma fa ho say say dia ma ba begina kwan no ho. Na me hu me nua drivers fo ni bia ma bi say omo de medie. Anu nti na mama begina kwan.
Dey no unya sen ene wanya sen.
Okay, ana me ba e dia papa bi na be chem blodo kase ba ako. Ana ba ako so be chem pizza. Ana ba ako so ma me 10 cedi. Nti ma ne sanka me kofie kura na mo de abai.
Pache Afro saying?
Pache friend Esther.
Udina.
Amo Esther.
Esther. Oh yeah, them I say.
Pache miton piota. Me wo ba mienu.
Wa wo mienu? Na nti na de na won ton piota na wa begina ase na o hye ska.
Aba komo de mene me ba. E komo de mene me ba. Ni ho achi me.
Government has made a number of interventions to cushion Ghanaians in the wake of COVID-19, from waiving water bills for the next 3 months to reduced electricity tariffs. The government is attempting to absorb the impact. But what happens to those who have no access to potable water or electricity to their homes? Maybe this presents a good opportunity for the country to have a second look at its social welfare system.
They are very vulnerable and they need to be catered for. My name is Kojo Ajman reporting for City News.
So that was Kojo Ajman on the streets of Accra. We also went to the coast because, as you know, fishing is a significant contributor to the economy and basically it's the livelihood of millions of people in this country. So Philip Nilate went to Choco to speak to some people, and then we also went to the Ashanti region where Edodo Pomafo reported on how residents of the Gomba line are surviving during this lockdown period.
Please, I'm just after the fetching of the water because the government is saying that they should give us some water freely. But hereby, we are not seeing anybody who is bringing the water for us to fetch. Two, is sharing of the food. They haven't come here and share any food to us. They can give you one small bag with oil, but nothing of a sort.
Let's say this water, but we are not getting it. It's giving us electricity. Yes, as for that, we have it. But then, I mean, other things like food and the rest. I personally don't like the idea where food is being cooked from somewhere and then be shared here. No. I mean, it should be somewhere, let's say if it's about rice in a pack together with oil for each and every individual. And this thing must be shared. We are asked to be in our various homes. So it should be shared in the night where people are asleep. Your door will be knocked and then it will be given to you. So by so doing, there will be no rush for the food. You understand? You people have to come to Choco and come and give us food. We have go to school before. We school no go us. We day here. You say quarantine. You quarantine ourselves for here to no food. Water. We don't have water. Almost 5 years, 7 days now. 7 days good now. We don't get water for here. We don't the bath. See me no bath. For 7 days I no bath. How they smell? I the smell. I the talk from Choco. You know Choco. It be our own ground. Abaja aga ho ni aho. Abaja ni sia. Kona naga fe noko. Shimi na mini. Ami. Nini afio wana. Wa oni gaba le no solo sueno. Inle waya ko ni asi won minister ni. No impa fair mi o won pa fa won gbo mi na ge gbema design yi owo gbema design si amewo atale ni respect yi
no me akashi stretch me na agbele mi ni choke $30 value so any ba iwo agbele mi ka me ya fertilizer ba agba mi na yo ba me ba sa na me peto sa na me ekome ninu ka agbele mi da tulete o ka agbele mi ka agbele mi social resistance no ni ma ka pekeke jiake what choko bi ene one pin yo fire ojimi iye bi enyo agme pipe mi ba ko ma ambista na ba fonu ni nya ka wa forward ka rice fertilizer ni na no eko iye rice fertilizer ne ke rice fertilizer ni iye ba ko ni eko le bi la ba fonu ni kamila fonu na ba omo ba yele anko mususa ta badayo mi hona omo na jaka omo aba wa bagi kefo bonafe ni wanye wa sabolai peke na pe is it fine is it normal is it unfair what all this we are dying for Choco.
The Gomba line mainly hosts persons who migrated from the northern part of Ghana to settle in Kumasi. The women are usually head porters, while the men are scrap dealers. Following government's announcement of a partial lockdown in Kumasi, Accra, Tema, and Kasua, some of them decided to leave for their home regions. Some were, however, not able to leave before the lockdown due to lack of funds. Their plight worsened when some of their structures were razed by fire 2 days before the partial lockdown. The announcement of some interventions by government to support vulnerable groups in the country came as a relief, but they say they are yet to benefit. The residents say they have not received any sort of support from government. They say some NGOs have been able to support some of them, albeit inadequate.
For now, their life is very, very tough for us in this area. As you can see, a lot of that boys and girls, all of us, nobody has able to afford even anything little to eat. Very, very difficult for this two weeks lockdown. So the only time we are appealing to government, anybody saying that they are giving us food or anything is a total lie. Nobody is giving us anything.
So we are in deep trouble. We don't have any place to sleep and we don't have any food to eat again. We and our children and our wives. So it's just an appeal. If it is really true that government is distributing food, the Gomba line, we are not getting it.
The national chairman of headquarters, Osman Ziblim, says they have information that some persons have received some items from government on their behalf, but they are yet to receive them.
We heard that government said that it's going to give our people food and money. Up now, I haven't seen anything from the government. And we are hearing that this is one of Spanish was saying that it's giving power food. It's a lie. If I decide going to give power food, if you come there where the power are, you shouldn't go to market and stand there and be shouting that I give power this. It's a lie. Our people are suffering here. Very, very suffering. And they are also beating at the market. The government has given them money. How can they come to the market and work again? So we are begging. Government and Otumfo. And Otumfo is our Kotoko. You should never forget about that. Since that our Kotoko, we are the same distance. So we are going to Otumfo. If God cannot do, Otumfo should come forward and help us.
For Abu Kari Mohammed Mustafa, he wants politicians who usually hire buses for them to go and vote in the northern part of the country during elections to intervene and offer them support.
This our structures got bent last 2 weeks, and we don't have any place to sleep, and we are here with our wives and our children. So it's just an appeal that I'm going to make to these our northern politicians, because during election time, frankly speaking, we don't vote here. We are all voting in the north. You understand? So if we have problem like this, they need to come to our aid.
The municipal chief executive for Asokore Mampong, Alhaji Ali Duseidu, says the National Disaster Management Organization, faith-based organizations, and the social welfare are putting in place adequate measures to cover all vulnerable groups.
With the heterogeneous nature of this municipality, with that sort of heterogeneous nature, there was the need to divide every aspect of the item into two. That's three. Having the chunk to the Muslims and Christians, the NADMO social welfare take a portion. You see, with all of these things that we are doing, we're also considering bureaucratic limitations, because I have a role to play and I have my limits within which I operate. Now, as you can see, the items has been bagged. They are now bagging. So it will be too early for someone to complain of not receiving his while the thing is ongoing. I mean, if they are still working, look at it. You go to the central mosque, the imams are there working. So maybe if you have not received yours yesterday or today, definitely you may receive it tomorrow, depending on when they finish. So I will beg of those saying this to also consider the work that the people are doing. It's not easy. So I strongly believe that by the time they finish, every interest will also be served.
The practice of social distancing is a difficult one for them to practice, considering the number of people who stay in one room at a time. This is a serious issue that needs to be looked at. But for them, a major concern has to do with how they get money and also they get food to survive within this period of the lockdown, especially as it has been extended by one more week. For City News, I am Edward Opon-Marfo, Dagomba Line, Kumasi.
So that was Edward Marfo with that one, and we also had Philip Plate in Choko. They were in the course of the. So we can begin our conversation, and in studio I have Honorable Nilante van der Poy, Member of Parliament for Odododio, and also Honorable Alexander Aban, Member of Parliament for Gomoa West. They will be in studio with me, and then joining us virtually will be Professor William Barboating, Head of Economics Department at the University of Ghana, and Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah, himself a lecturer at the University of Ghana and also a health economist. He's also a regular on our City TV and 97.3 City FM platform. So they are the ones I'll start the conversation with. And if my friends in-house will permit me, I will go to my friends who are at home first, and then I will come in studio. I will start.
But you didn't start well.
Okay.
Until yesterday, he was.
Okay, so the last time, let me correct myself there. Thank you very much, Honorable Nilante. The last time Honorable Alexander was here, he was Deputy Health Minister.
Yes.
2 days after, he was named Deputy Communications Minister.
With approval of.
He became the Deputy Communications Minister. So congratulations again. Well, let's begin.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You are moving around. I was just telling the guys off screen, but by the time the government is done with you, you would have played every role, utility player.
Thank you. In fact, he's also the organist of our choir.
Oh, really? Oh, things are happening. You're hiding things from us, Honorable. When we finish, you must give us something small.
Choir master. I've actually played the keyboard in the studio before, but not on big issue.
Oh, then we'll bring the keyboard. Please.
My friend.
I will bring out the keyboard. But let me.
I did that on the breakfast show with Isaac Wilberforce. I've forgotten the name of the lady.
Jifa.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you must give us a special performance there. Nilante will sing. So let me go over to the University of Ghana first and speak to Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah, who's a health economist. So, Doc, before the lockdown was put into place, you had spoken about the different ways that it could be done. We've seen 3 weeks of it. What have you made of the impact on the economic side?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kutubuafo, and good morning to the fellow panelists and most importantly, my senior Prof. Bob Watson. Prof, good morning.
Good morning.
And, welcome to see you here. So, yeah, I think I was one of those who advocated that we needed some sort of a lockdown, even though I wasn't in favor of a complete lockdown. I was in favor of a partial lockdown, like we've talked about. I think that oftentimes what people are interested in is first to talk about what is the economic impact of the lockdown. The Minister of Finance was in Parliament and he gave us an idea, and he was frank to let us know that whatever he said wasn't the complete picture, because everywhere in the world, nobody knows what the complete cost will be until we are through with this. So he simulated on the basis of a 2-week lockdown, and he gave us an idea to the tune of about 9 billion Ghana cedis, with the direct public health cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million. So for starters, that is basically what we would say. But oftentimes what I say is that that isn't a bigger problem to me than how effective the lockdown is being. What we've got to know is that a lockdown is not an end. It's only a means to an end. And the reason why we lock down within the public health literature is, just like I've said over and over again, is to try and smoothing the infection curve and ensure that we do not overwhelm our health infrastructure, be able to manage it in such a way that the lockdown will be as short as possible, and then we would be able to contract the consequential economic cost. So I think that the discussion has got to be, have we been very effective in terms of this lockdown? Now, I have been looking at, now when we talk about effectiveness, most Ghanaians will be judging by what they see on the street and things like that. I would say that by and large, if we look at the overall management of this problem, I would say that the government has done pretty much well. Of course, we do all agree that maybe if some of the measures had come in early enough, we probably wouldn't be where we are. But again, I always argue that that is not something that we can cry over, because that is spilled milk. There is not much you can do about it. And what we need to concentrate on is what is before us. In terms of the way they've managed this, I think that I've been intrigued. They've done it the way it ought to be. But the issue is as to whether people have really stayed at home and we've been able to limit movement, because the lockdown is supposed to limit movement, because this virus does not move. It's humans who move it. One of the ways by which we can look at that is probably to look at our telcos, because they are the best to be able to give us data on movement. Right now, the only one I've seen is Vodafone, who are doing something with the Ghana Statistical Service.
Yeah.
But of course, you know that if you look at penetration, Vodafone is very small. And so you would have wanted to see data from MTN, which is currently not available. Apple has also given us some sort of data, but within Africa, penetration of Apple devices is quite low. So you would want to look at Google devices. And Google has also given us some mobility report. Now they've given us 2 versions, and I've tried to look at the 2 versions. So the first version was released somewhere around the 1st of April. That is just at the point where we implemented the partial lockdown. Now, if you look at the figures, and what Google has done is very good. They've tried to look at movement to recreational and retail areas, grocery and pharmacies, parks, and then they've also looked at movement to workplaces, and then concentration in residential areas. Now, if you look at the changes aren't that drastic. So it gives me an idea that if this Google report is something to go by, it means that movement hasn't changed that much. Now, let me give a caution. This report is just based on those who are using Google devices, who have activated their positional sensors, and so they are able to get data on who is moving. And I'll give you a typical example. So, for instance, if you look at the report on the 1st of April, if you look at movement to recreational and retail areas, it was down by 52%. Now, if you look at the latest version, which was released just about 2 days ago, movement is down by 54%, so which is just a 2 percentage point, which is very, very small. Now, if you look at movement to pharmacy and groceries, it was 40, it still remains 40. To parks, it was 33, it's now 34. And then the most important one, which is residential areas, it was plus 20, is now plus 22. So just about 2 percentage points. And then movement to workplaces, it was 13, okay, now down by about 25%. So it tells me that movement hasn't changed that much. So that's what the issue is. We need to be able to do a lot more to be able to limit movement. People have started to talk about the issue of maybe we need to begin to take off the lockdown. And I'm saying we have to be quite careful, because I don't think that we are at the apex of our curve yet. And Mr. Boaku, you remember that the last time I had a discussion with you in your office,
yes,
I had done some modeling, and then I told you that if the restriction that we're putting in place, assuming it was going to work by just 30% in depressing the transmission rate of about 2.2%, and my 2.2% was generous because the pre-restrictions transmission rate in Wuhan was just about 3.4%, and I used just 2.2%. With several other parameters on a population of about 30 million, I projected that we're going to have close to about 500 infections within a month, and we'll have over 1,000 people who will be incubating the virus. And so we are nowhere near the apex of our curve. And so when people begin to talk about taking off the lockdown, we've got to be careful. And so that, for a start, that is what I would say. Okay. And then I probably would let the other people also give their take.
All right, then let me go then to Professor William Boating, who is the head of economics department at the University of Ghana. Prof, we've heard the finance minister speak. He also spoke yesterday with the IMF boss and the boss of the World Bank, where again he spoke about the kind of hole we find ourselves in. We heard also that on Friday the IMF had given us a $1 billion loan credit. It's always been a balance between deciding on livelihoods and the economy, hasn't it? If you look at 3 weeks of the lockdown so far, where are we in that balance, considering some of the things the finance minister has been saying?
Well, thank you very much, and let me say good morning to colleague panelists, especially Sydney, who I've seen for a long time, and of course my colleague who had the opportunity to speak from the office, because perhaps he stays on campus. Yeah. Well, I think it's important that we balance the health and the economy, and it is also important if you speak to one side of the argument here. I'm talking about the economy. You may say that we have to maybe suspend the lockdown because the economy is not in good fortune. But we should also bear in mind that if our health is also going down the drain, then we don't have any economy. That is why in economics we have something we call optimization. We need to balance the whole situation. In other words, we need to balance the economics and also the health aspect. From where I sit, it's difficult to get the figures, but you can gauge the effect from what you played, especially in the informal sector part of the economy. And whatever the case is, some people are going to suffer, and some people, of course, are going to gain. You balance the two, it must be done in such a way that any decision that we are going to take in terms of the health will not entirely collapse the economy. We cannot continue to say that, well, because we can get some help from the World Bank, the IMF, we can get grants from elsewhere. We also have to mention that the private sector in Ghana are also doing their bit. We are going to continue to lock down. We should also bear in mind that if we are saying that, well, the virus is still increasing, and for that matter, we have to also lock down, we will come back and get more deaths than what the coronavirus will be. So my take here will be to balance the equation. And I picked from what my colleague said, that the lockdown is not a lockdown per se, but what is the lockdown going to achieve? If we lock down for 1 month, we lock down for 1 year, and we are still moving around and we are not staying at home, we will not achieve it, and we are going to have two worst scenarios. The economy will go down, and at the same time, we will not be able to achieve what the lockdown is supposed to achieve. So, looking at the situation, we have to balance the equation. Balancing the equation means that if we have done the lockdown, we assess it to be able to know whether indeed we've been able to achieve what the lockdown was supposed to achieve. Then we go to the economic side and find out whether we've been able to intervene in a way that those who were losing on the side were benefiting. And that will be the way to go.
Now, in looking at the economic side, and that is where I want to focus, I will just read portions of Mr. Oforiatta's statements for you and take it from there. So he says, for instance, that the economy, the growth in GDP, which was projected at 6.8%, could fall to 1.5%, according to our projections. And then he asks a poignant question: how long can we sustain this? Then he goes on to talk about the fact that economic activity has been massively disrupted, hotels are closing, industry is tottering, airlines are grounded, and our toast of the region airports lies asleep. And then he goes on to talk about other things. Then if you go to the statement he delivered yesterday in the conversation with the bosses of the World Bank and the IMF, he talks about three fundamental issues that need to be addressed. And he says that we need to recognize that this economic crisis will last much longer and have a greater impact on the development. And the question I want to present to you is this: do we have an economic crisis as we speak now with reference to Ghana? There are those who have said, well, it's just 2.5 weeks. How can we say we are in the throes of a crisis? Difficulties, yes, but crisis?
Well, I don't think I will go for crisis. I will go for challenges, because in any situation that you find yourself, you have to evaluate it well. This issue of coronavirus that we are going through is not only Ghana that is facing challenges. So you can also talk about the US and so on. So where we are saying we are having challenges, because even though many economic activities have come to a halt, we still have other economic activities that are going on. We have to note that Ghana is not only Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, and so on. If you take the population of Ghana, we will have about 10 million Ghanaians who live in Accra and Kumasi, Chema, and perhaps Kaswa, where we have the lockdown. So 20 million Ghanaians are still doing their economic activities. You go to Tamale, you go to Sunyane, you go to Takoradi, there are a lot of economic activities going on. And apart from that, even those of us who are in lockdown, there are still economic activities going on. Those who are able to work from home can also go on with their economic activity. Those of us in education are teaching online. So we are still performing our duties, not as perfect as it could be, but still economic activities are going on. You go to the financial sector, even though some banks have closed down some of their branches, they are still working. We have essential services going on. Even in the trade sector, we have food sellers still going on with their activities. The only challenge that we have is that where we get our revenue from, for instance, at the ports, is where there is a slowdown. At the airport, we are having problem because the whole transport, the whole aviation industry has gotten to a halt. At the domestic transport, you still have some activities going on, but it has slowed down. So I wouldn't say we are in a crisis. I would say we are having some challenges. And therefore, we have to manage it in such a way that we will not get to a situation where we will have a total collapse. And let me also add this. As we look at the current situation, we have to look at it from the short, medium, and long term. Let me give you one scenario. If we don't balance the health and economy, and then we get to a situation where our health sector is overstretched and people begin to die, can we measure the long-term effect on our economy? And from where I sit, the major long-term effect that we are going to have will be the human capital. In other words, the number of people who are going to lose their life. And therefore, within the short term, we try to make sure that the challenge that we are facing in the economic side will not move towards a total collapse. And of course, the health part that we are facing will also not move to a total collapse. So that at the end of the day, we are going to have a lose-lose situation, not a win-win situation.
All right, let me go back to you, Dr. Abeka Nkrumah. Now, let's talk again about the model. And this week, there have been several articles by other academics from other parts of the continent who are saying, well, the lockdown is not an African solution because of the idiosyncrasies of the economies that we run here. And so it is imperative that governments find, even in the short term, quick ways of lifting the lockdown and getting economies back to work. Again, because of the very informal nature of the economies, where for Ghana, if we have 90%, and I'm quoting the finance minister here, 90% of our economy is informal. And that means there's a certain reliance on face-to-face interactions to move the economy and to make sure that people at least get a certain kind of livelihood. Have you heard those arguments that have come through this week? And is there a model you have in mind that allows us to perhaps start considering actively this 90%?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Boaku. So once again, this is the way I look at it, like my senior Prof. Babuating said. We've got to be very careful, okay, in terms of what the long-term effect is. So, yes, lockdown is not an African formula. To a certain extent, I agree. But at least we also know that this particular virus only knows one formula at the moment when we don't have a vaccine. And that formula is don't move, don't come into contact. So when people begin to say it's not an African formula, I don't seem to understand what they are trying to talk about. And when they don't tell us exactly what it is that they mean. This is what I think. I think what we need to do as Africans, because we have a large informal sector, is to make sure that the sort of partial lockdowns that we've implemented, we get it working as quickly as possible so that we can come out of the lockdown as quickly as possible. And the reason why I say in Ghana, we are on the trajectory that probably will help us to come out as quickly as possible is when you look at what I call the most important statistic, which is tests per million. Now, if you look at tests per million right now and you compare it to several countries, so for instance, Ghana now is at 1,632 in terms of tests per million. If you compare it to a place like Rwanda, which in quotes has some sort of autocratic tendencies, they have only 482. South Africa is the closest with about 1,603. Now, if you look at the countries that have been able to take a hold on this virus and are getting ready to come out, there are countries like South Korea that have something like about 10,600, New Zealand, which has about 15,000, and New Zealand has only 1,400 cases. Germany has about 138,000 cases, but they have 20,000 tests per million, and that's why they are not seeing the effect. So the point I'm making here is that, yes, the lockdown in a partial sense is necessary. We need to make sure that it works as quickly as possible, it is effective, and we can ramp up tests. Now, what I've heard over the past week is that we brought in the reference lab in Kolebu, I've just heard that the Germans have given us a little bit over half a million euros to be able to improve the capacity in KCCR.
Yeah.
We hear the university in the Volta region is also opening up a lab. So and I also know that M Pharma has also donated equipment which will help Noguchi to be able to expand tests. So I think the strategy is to be able to go out, test more, and if we can test more and isolate, then we can come out of this lockdown as quickly as possible. Now, again, let me make it clear. When we talk about lockdowns have economic gradients, and this gradient is both at the macro and
we seem to have
revenue from the ports. We are losing revenue from taxes. We are losing revenue from economic activities. You talk about hotels. Hotels is now down from 70% to less than 30%. Okay, so the best we can do is to make sure that we get people to stay home probably in the next week or two. We make sure that we ramp up tests and isolate people, and then we can encourage the wearing of masks so that we can then come out. Because if we don't do that and we joke, what may happen is that we may go back again and lock down entirely in a way that we probably cannot handle, which I believe the Deputy Minister has a lot more information even than I probably have. But like I've told you, the models that I created, if this don't work well, we are going to get, you remember the model that I discussed with you. If, for instance, the lockdown wasn't working well, we're going to have a situation where within just a month's time, we're going to have about 400 and something people in the ICU. The last time the minister spoke to us, he said that we had only 60 something ventilators. And you know that from this disease, the people who go to the ICU, not more than 50% manage to make it. And that could be a disaster. So we need to find a fine balance between this. But I think that we're on the right trajectory. We need to be a lot more firm, get this to work, and ramp up testing. And that's the way we can get this done, at least from the example of Korea, from New Zealand, and from Germany. And that is what the data tells us.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah. I have Sidney Kisley Hayford back on the show. He's at home. And Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa as well. I'll go to them in a bit. But let me come to Honorable Nilanti Vanderpoy and Honorable Alexander Aban in studio quickly. Honorable Nilanti, let me take your perspectives first. I'm sure you might also have some questions. You can pass questions on to the academics on the other side. And then from there, I'll go to Sydney and Franklin quickly on the economic impact. We'll deal with the social intervention side.
Okay.
I know you have issues there, but let's deal with the economics.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say good morning to our viewers, and let me say good morning to Doc and Prof. I'm beginning to see some of my contemporaries taking up very high positions at the university. It's beautiful. Let me say this, coming from the Central Business District of Accra, where I am the Member of Parliament, I can say that the economic impact of this pandemic has been tremendous on the people. My constituents call me and tell me. Just this morning, I was having a discussion with some of our guys who sell plumbing materials. And according to some of them, if there should be an extension of this lockdown for the next 2 weeks, they don't know what will happen to them. Some of them are also talking about how are they going to assess possible stimulus packages that will be coming out in order to cushion them when this thing is over. And as the MPT, they're throwing those questions to me, and I told them they should be assured I will find out the answers for them. I look at even the small micro industries within the community, within the Accra area, and I can tell you, the person who sells fish, even though he's been given opportunity to sell the fish, the people cannot even come to the market to buy the fish because the restrictions are such that it's becoming almost difficult. And so do you know what is happening? Not too many people are able to bring their wares to the market. Not too many people are able to come to the market. So the few people who go to the market virtually scramble over the little that is in the market. So you see cassava. A cassava under normal circumstance you go for about 5 cedis. We'll be going for 20 cedis because there are more people for that number of cassava. So it's stretching people beyond the limits. In spite of the fact that people could not go to work and have, even those who have, it's becoming very difficult for them to be able to contain the situation. So I agree with Professor Bamboatin, yes, William.
Yes.
Willie, I agree with Willie. I also agree seriously with my brother that we should also look at the health implications. The economic implications should not outweigh our interest in the health implications. Because if we're not careful and we think too much about the economic implications, so we say we are lifting the lockdown, we may have a spiral of the virus into a level where we will not be able to contain. So even though the lockdown is affecting people to a large extent, if we look at the implications that possibly could arise as a result of our haste in addressing economic challenges, and so we overlooking the health challenges, we may have a difficulty which will affect all of us eventually. I am also very concerned about the fact that if as the minister came to Parliament and as we all agreed in Parliament and we virtually voted money for, if modalities for extending of these packages and support to the needy, the vulnerable, and those who have been affected should be looked at as early as possible. You understand? I know people, businesses that are. So what do we do? How are you going to get these people? What are the modalities for which people can start processing so that as soon as these things are over, they wouldn't have to wait long to get their monies in order to revamp their businesses? Because if we don't start the processes now and we wait until things are over and we say, look, you can, we may have a barrage of people, a huge number of people now come in, and you know the bureaucratic systems we have, they're going through the process of it will affect people's businesses more. But if we can streamline the processes now and let people start applying, let people start going through the process of acquiring these stimulus packages, then by the time we end everything, it becomes so easier for us to say that you go here, you go here, you go here. Your application has been processed, possibly it's online, has been processed, so you can easily have it. So we must take this opportunity this time, also look at how we're going to address the sort of problems that will come after the lockdown, especially the economic ones. I am interested in the small, small medium enterprises and also the micro businesses, the tabletop sellers, the small business, the one who is selling farm belt at Aboso Kain, the Kelewele seller, the Wache seller, all these people. Those people that we do not really see, because they are those who are suffering, because they are using small capital. And because of this lockdown, their businesses are being affected more because people are not buying, and the little 10 cedis or 5 cedis that he will make a day to sustain him for the next day is also not coming. So we should start looking at those people and get them, because if we don't, it will create another problem for us as soon as this lockdown. So the economic impact, yes, is huge. I must be frank with you, it's huge. Taxi drivers are complaining because their car owners have not reduced the sales they are supposed to make at the end of the day.
But that's also inconsiderate.
Well,
everybody knows what the situation is.
And he has reduced the number of passengers he's supposed to take. He cannot even go beyond certain areas. So all these are going to create a whole lot of problems for us within the social economy, which we need to address.
All right, thank you for that. I'll come to you, Honorable Abba, but let me go and speak to Sidney Kesley. He has been missed on the show for about a month. So, Sidney, good morning. Okay, so I will try and get Sidney.
Maybe he's still drinking his cocoa.
Well, now he cannot get cocoa and fruit. So I will try and get Sidney, but then let me take your comments now, your initial comments, Honorable Abba.
Thank you very much.
You are in government. The decisions are weighing hard on you. The economic impact.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
Yes.
My choir master.
Thank you. It must not be lost on anybody, and it's not lost on government, that in going into these harsh, if I should put it that way, decisions, harsh but very necessary decisions, we're not going to have economic effects or financial effects on people. It's not lost on anybody at all. By the time the decision was taken, I'm sure government knew that it was going to have effect on the people of Ghana, especially in our case where the economy is not so formalized, a lot of informal players, right? And for those who do hand to mouth and they have to venture out every day before they get something. But I think it was very necessary, and probably it sits well with the saying that a blow which is inevitably yours, earlier encountered, would extricate you from later higher catastrophic effects that you may have to receive, right? We are talking about trying to maybe cushion or reducing the effect of the lockdown, the economic effect of the lockdown. So it appears that the thinking seems to be that try and draw a balance, okay, or try to reopen the economy and all that. I may quickly have to maybe get our minds adverted to what is happening in the United States. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is trying to say that, you know what, by May 1st, the economy must
open up,
right? Indeed, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, threatened a lawsuit before Trump even backed down on that call. Because the thing is that, what is the economy? When the people whose strength would actually fuel and engine the economy are dying, right? I had a discussion with somebody of high place in the country. I said, hey, where you have got to, every money that you think you can get it and save the people, the life of the people. After that, we can talk about the economy, because after all, it is the strength of the people that you use in building the economy, right? Look at the way people were dying in those countries. Thankfully, we have not experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we do, probably because we have not experienced that, that's why people are thinking that, oh, some few people have got it. Why should everybody stay at home? We are hungry, blah, 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 blah. Open up the economy, try to draw a balance and all that. Look, if we had experienced that, probably those calls may not have even come at all. Because, you see, the effect, in the final analysis, everything that we are doing, the economy, financial sector, everything, they are just handmaids to serve us as human beings for our well-being and probably longevity of life. Mm-hmm. And so if we try to just look at the temporary discomforts that we are experiencing, and because of that we quickly ask, oh, let's open up, and then we get expelled. The very people who are, whose welfare or whose agitation just to get food and other necessaries of life is pushing them for us to open the economy, will be the same people who say, oh, we are now dying. And in the final analysis, we will lose on both ends. We will lose our human capital, which would have to be used later to revamp the economy, and by that process, the economy itself will also come to a halt. Mm-hmm. Right? So it calls for a lot of tact and thoughtfulness in coming out with such decisions. The lockdown, like Doc said, was not an end in itself. It was a means to an end, right? It was to facilitate the process of going ahead of the virus. Because after all, the virus doesn't move. It is human beings who move, and through that movement and social interactions, get the virus to spread. So if we say stay at home and let the tracers be able to go ahead of the virus, it is only then that we'll be able to, if I say, isolate those who may be carrying the virus, and then when they are notionally caught in that web, they will be treated. So that's why it is trace, tests, treat, right? When that has been done, and we know that we have a clean bill of health for all of us, we can now open the economy, right? So as to whether we are going to extend it or we are going to make it relaxed a little more, will depend on, as the president said, the data that he receives.
Okay, hold on for me there. We'll take our first break. When we return, we'll hear again from Professor Babu Atin, Gordon Abeka Nkrumah, Sydney Kesley Hayford, Franklin Kujo, and then the next phase of our conversation, I'll start with Honorable Nilanti Vandapa, where we get the impact of the social interventions. Both members of parliament have been carrying out their own social interventions. The big issue, be right back.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and Star Times box. City TV, it's your world.
Get clarity on subjects such as maths, English, IT, and science. Class Act airs every Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on City TV on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182. Don't forget your pens, pencils, and your notebooks and tune in to Class Act only on City TV.
Welcome back to the big issue. Today doing the economic impact, the social impact of interventions of COVID as well on the show with the Honorable Nilanti Vandapa, Member of Parliament for Dodo, Member of Parliament for Gomwa West, Alexander Aban, Professor William Babu Atin, Head of Economics Department at the University of Ghana, Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah, Health Economist, Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, and Sydney Kesley Hayford, Financial Analyst. You haven't heard from those two yet. They will join us in a bit. But let me go back quickly quickly to Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah and Professor Boateng so that we can wrap up this segment of the conversation and move on to the social intervention. So, let me start with you, Dr. Abeka Nkrumah. On the pedestal that we are now, I saw a video yesterday, for instance, from right behind Adabraka. Thousands of people were outside at the market, 10 p.m., buying, doing their own things. We've seen people find their own ways, let's be honest, of solving the problems they feel they are facing with regards to economic hardship. So we've seen an increase in begging or alms pleading, basically, in parts of the would not find these persons in. What is the time frame that we are looking at? I know you're saying we shouldn't get complacent, but it does look at the moment like the economic wear down of this is beating the doors of government down and saying we cannot handle this even for another 5 days. So stop this and let us move on with our lives.
Well, once again, thank you very much. So I think that there is the need to put this whole thing in context and not be in some form of a rush in terms of the way we respond to this. So if you look at the situation or the scenario that you've painted, I think that it is mainly what I call the symptom of, if you like, poor planning to handling the issues. So, for instance, you have people, the last time I saw on TV, people who had queued to go and get food at AMA, and the site was not that good. And I'm asking myself, why would we even want to cook food and give to people? I remember on the 27th of March, when we had the first show, I gave a recommendation that the way you handle this is for, let's say, the Ministry of Social Welfare and Gender to quickly put together a system to register people. And I specifically said that we could develop an app which can be done within a day.
They are not using it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
We could develop an app which would be done within a day, and for people to register. And if they register through this app, you would be able to use the GPS on their phone to pick their location. So we can have a database of who is where and who is at what point. Again, if you look at, there is already data. If you look at the last GLSS, the last GLSS actually tells us what expenditure patterns are in Greater Accra. So, for instance, in Greater Accra, we know that if you look at the first and second quintiles, okay, they represent about 1.1 and 3.6, which is about 4.7% of total household expenditure. And total household expenditure in Accra is just about 21,271 Ghana cedis. So you know the amount that you can dedicate, because if you are going to give help, the help will come in terms of the expenditure distribution. It will be between those who are within the first and second quintiles. So we know the amount. We register them, and we can get the Ghana's alternative for FEMA. How do you call them?
NADMO.
NADMO. You can get NADMO into these communities, work with the leadership of these communities, and give them the food so that they don't have to come and then mass up. It is this massing up that is creating that sort of anxiety among people. Now then you come to the market. We talked about the fact that we can work with the market leaders and then draw a schedule and tell people when they are supposed to go to the market. We could do this very well, such that it will not create the sort of anxiety. And believe you me, there are a lot of people who are not anxious. It is only the few, especially those who are vulnerable, and it is because of the way we've planned this. We can replan this and do it very well, so that we are not forced to go back into a situation where the virus overwhelms us. It is just the issue of planning. And I guess that if we could develop a tracker, we could also develop an app to really identify the vulnerable and then get to them.
Okay, let me go to you, Professor Babuati, for your comments on, again, I follow the finance minister, and all I seem to get is everybody wants a bit of financial wiggle room. So it looks like this has, brought the conversation of, well, we owe China X amount of money, we owe the US X amount of money, we owe the West X amount of money. Forgive us the debts now so we can find the money to focus on saving ourselves now. Is that the kind of conversation you expect to be had at this moment? Is that normal, the kind of conversation that we are hearing our finance minister engage in at the moment?
Well, I will answer your question by saying that if you bring it down to our own settings, do we have to tell the banks to also hold on with our repayment so that at least we'll be able to sort ourselves out during this crisis? And then when we get out of it, then the banks will also come and get their money. I think one of the recommendations that some of us have made at the domestic level is that at least the banks will be able to give some kind of time for micro, small firms, and even individuals who are owing them to be able to have time in terms of repayment. So when you aggregate it to the higher level, then you expect that if the country has some kind of debt obligation, and of course we are supposed to service them, and the crisis that we find, the challenge that we find ourselves, the little money that we are getting, if we are supposed to use that money to pay those debts, then it is wise to also ask them to give us some kind of relief, some kind of time to be able to sort ourselves out, so that when we are able to get ourselves out and then economic activity comes to the table and then we are getting the needed revenue, then we can talk about repayment. So I don't have any problem if the finance minister start a conversation from that angle.
And what about the stimulus package? Ni alluded to that as well. How do we implement a stimulus package? Do we target certain sectors of the economy and say, X, you get this and do that? Is there a model that we can follow to do this and get it right and see that it is actually having an impact on the economy?
There are different models, but models work with data. But one thing that I've seen in Ghana is that we don't value data, and many a time we look at our own, we use our own observation to do things and implement policies. My colleague made mention of the fact that because we didn't plan the distribution of food, and even distributing cooked food has brought us kind of problem. There are models that we can do and do targeting. If you look at micro and small firms, you go to NBSSI. Indeed, they have registered these micro and small enterprises, and we'll be able to use that one to be able to get to them. But one thing that we need to bear in mind is that the implementation of the stimulus package should not be at the time that we are trying to solve the problem, because now we have asked all of us to halt our economic activity. So if you begin to give a stimulus package now, people are going to use that money to do other things. So I expect that if we are going to give our stimulus package, we just use this time to plan, to find out how we can get those people who need them. And by the time that we get out of this crisis, we will be able to identify them and get the stimulus package to them.
All right, then. Let me now go to...
Mr. Akutobafo,
yes,
sorry. Just a little addition to what my senior said. So I've developed a concept paper which we're working on that addresses this. Okay. And basically, you see, when you talk about managing a pandemic of the scale that we have, there are basically two phases. There is a phase that you call survival and containment, and that is the phase in which we are, which I would say we're doing very well. And then you have the second phase. The second phase is what you call recovery and reconstruction. And oftentimes the second phase is much difficult than the first phase. Now, what I would say is that in terms of the second phase, the planning for the second phase will have to start now. which probably we haven't started. Now, what's going to happen? It is not just about having money and throwing it at people. I'll give you a simple analogy. If you look at the way the virus deals with human beings, it is the same way the virus deals with organizations. So there are categories. There are some organizations, just as the virus killed human beings, the virus has actually killed those organizations. They are gone. There is nothing you can do about them. There are also some organizations, just as the virus has decimated the internal organs of human beings, and so they will be on ventilators for life. Some organizations will have to be on economic ventilators for life. And it will be a decision as to whether we keep them on those ventilators or we take them off. There are some organizations who were also not touched just by people like you in the studios who have not been touched by the virus. So you are going on with your business as usual. And there are some organizations, by sheer adaptation, they have found new ways of doing things. Okay, so we need to now begin to gather data right now and be able to categorize all these organizations and know how we implement the stimulus. I'll give you a typical example. There are young entrepreneurs who at the beginning of the year were looking for office space in town. Now, with the virus, they've realized that office is no longer necessary. They can do their work at home, so they don't no longer need offices. So you would realize that real estate, in terms of those who are renting offices, is going to go down. People have found new ways of doing things. We need to begin to gather the data right now so we know where the growth potential is in terms of employment, in terms of GDP, and allocate the money in that way so that we can come out of the recovery as quickly as possible.
All right, thank you very much. Let me go to Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, and then I'll go to Sidney Kisley. Franklin, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasant day.
It is. I see the lockdown is wearing you out at home.
Pretty much. And yes, people are getting on to learning other kinds of skills. I've been trying to do a bit of reading. And so, yes, maybe we need to start counting our blessings as long as the virus has not, we've escaped it actually.
So what have you made of the economic impact? 3 weeks of the lockdown. I'm sure Imani Africa, even from remote working areas, has been crunching some numbers. What have you made from your perspective?
Well, some of my colleagues have done some of the economic number crunching, and I think we published that long ago. But what is emerging clearly from the conversation so far by the two good professors is that, look, we cannot take things for granted. I mean, we may have done creditably well so far, but there are time lag issues. If you take critically, if you look at the fact that it takes almost 2 weeks before we get results, it means that we are potentially not actually behind the virus in a way. So it's very instructive to be careful how we lift the lockdown. I would go for what is emerging in other places like Germany and even what my favorite Trump has proposed, some sort of phased lifting of some of the severest forms of lockdowns. And I think that even in the case of Ghana, I suspect it's already in place. It just so happens that because of our poor nature of targeting, as Pastor Martin has suggested, it makes it difficult for some of these relief packages to be, targeted or pinpointed to persons who need them. But I think we are getting out of the depths of these inadequacies. But truth be told, I think that, look, the article the finance minister put out in the Financial Times was quite sobering. And indeed, when you ask the question whether we are anywhere near to a recession, I would think that the finance minister was trying to be futuristic. If you think that he must have done some number crunching to suggest that the economy is likely to lose almost a 6 percentage point of growth from, I think, 6.5 or 7.5, I think to almost 1.5%.
Yeah, from 6.8 to 1.5.
6.8 to 1.5%. I think he's looking into the crystal ball and possibly looking forlornly at his computer, looking at the numbers and saying, this is likely to be the scenario. But even in that article, he was quite candid and said he doesn't know and he doesn't even have the answers. And I think these are crucial times for us to reflect on some of the interventions we've made as a country in the past. I think it calls for some cooler heads and making sure that going forward, some of the interventions we seek to make, some of them which may not be necessarily economic, must help anytime this kinds of conversation. I'm not.
Well, we seem to be having a problem with Franklin's line, so we'll try and fix that quickly. Let me see if I can get Sydney. Sydney Kisley for morning. Sydney, can you hear me?
Hello. Good morning. I hear you.
Okay, your line is also a bit problematic, so we'll get that fixed. Let me come in studio quickly, and then I'll move the conversation along whilst we work on Sydney Kisley Force line. And at this point, I will say, let me even just take final words from Professor William Babwati and Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah so that they can go and then we come in studio. So, Professor Babwati, let me take your final words on the economic impact. If you have any suggestions for moving forward, how both citizens and the government can navigate this path that we are on at the moment. We are expecting the president to speak this week, at least by Sunday, because the current one ends on Monday morning. Another 5 days?
Well, let me.
Professor Babwati.
My colleague. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so maybe let me try and behave as if I can go into health a bit. But I think to say that with the lockdown, even though I know the lockdown was meant to go into testing, I think from where I sit, one thing that we have not done is education. Educating the people for them to know that indeed the virus exists, and when it gets you, it will put you down. It looks like if somebody who is close to you hasn't gotten the virus, or a close friend hasn't died from the virus, you may think that it is it's a macro issue. But I'm sure when you get somebody who is very close to you with the virus and has been quarantined, and that person is not able to see his children and wife and so on, that is where you see the reality. So as we lock down, and I don't know whether we are going to extend it, but my recommendation is to perhaps extend it by 1 week and try to make sure that it is effective. We try to add education to it for people to know that even when it is lifted gradually, we will be able to open up and make sure that the protocol that have been given to us will be adhered to. Now, from the economic perspective, I agreed with Nilanti that when you look at the micro aspect, you realize that the effect is very severe, especially if you are a trader and you are sitting at home. But then you have to also look at the macro level and also realize that there are some activities that are taking place. So when we aggregate the micro, then we get the macro. I will suggest that as we try to perhaps find solution on the health side, on the economic side, all the intervention that we have come up with shouldn't be driven by what I would say emotions. It should be driven by models, it should be driven by data, such that those who need intervention will get it, but not those who don't need intervention. And if we do that, we will be able to achieve good results.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Professor Babwati. Dr. Abeka Nkrumah, your final words?
All right, thank you very much. So this is what I would say. The epidemiological modeling does not show we've turned the curve. So in terms of extension, I would imagine that, yes, there will be some bit of extension. But for me, that is not what is most important. What is most important is ensuring that the reason why we are putting the extension is emphasized. Education is important. Making sure that there is compliance. Ensuring that people stay at home so that at least we can suppress the transmission rate. Making sure that we begin the planning for the recovery and reconstruction phase. Making sure that we identify the new areas of growth so that the skills transition process will begin. Because there are some people who are going to lose their job. But the good news is that new industries are going to open up, and those people need new skill set. Now that they are at home, if we can find that and begin to make that available, people can begin to transition in terms of skills acquisition, so that once we get there, things won't be that much difficult. So by ending, that's the sort of thing I think I would say. Let's make sure that we ensure people comply so that the lockdown can be as short as possible. Thank you very much.
All right, then. Thank you very much. So I will say goodbye to Professor William Barboati and Dr. Gordon Abeka Nkrumah. Thank you so much for your time with us. I think, Franklin, you are back?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so yes, you were wrapping up, and then I can come to Honorable Aban in studio.
Yes, I was just saying that the comments made by the two professors are very instructive. And I think the concluding words of Professor Abeka is equally to be taken into perspective. Look, we are nowhere near Eureka. And I think it's important that we learn to catch up with the virus. There's always a time lag. And I think there's a time lag of about 2 weeks before we get to know what the infection rates are looking like. But I must admit that the economic impact as it is now is incalculable. And I think references have been made to the cost of food prices, which is also as a result of the lockdown and in some of the farmers or some of the farmer produce getting down to the urban areas. So these are very trying times, and I think it behoves on us all to start getting up our loins. So just as the state is asking us to get up our loins, it is important that the state also needs to start looking at some of its own interventions they've made, reducing those interventions in terms of the monetary investment that have been made. Some of them could obviously stay back until we've managed to contain the virus.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Franklin. Sydney, are you back? Yeah, Sydney, I can hear you.
Okay, I've turned my video off because eating up my bandwidth.
No problem. So it's your voice we want.
And we'll just do the video. I have listened very carefully. I've spoken to people on this matter. And honestly, I think that it's time for us to lift this lockdown. How
well, I think I'll have to work on Sydney's line. Apologies to our listeners and our viewers.
It's so bad.
It's very, very, very bad at the moment. So let me come in studio. I'll take a couple of messages and then we can start the conversation on the social interventions and its impact with Honorable Alexander Aban. So a couple of messages that have come in this morning.
Yeah, the issues. So let him start.
Okay, since you are deferring to him. Franklin, please stay on the line for me as well. Messages coming in. Ernest Tovi from Ashime and Peaceland says, we don't have access to pipe-borne water, so we used to buy water and we are still buying. Won't there be any government intervention on how these tanker drivers should distribute the water? They are still selling the water. That is a big issue we've been following. In fact, it looks like now that's falling on the police and the army to move around with their tankers to supply the water. So Honorable Abba notes that issue down, the supply of water, because the people sell the water. I think last week or so, we went to one of the main water sales points and they are saying, look, nobody has communicated to them how they're going to get their money. So they are selling the water, they're not reducing any prices. Positive Change Medina says, it is shocking and annoying to hear the government say Ghanaians will have to wait for 2 more weeks to begin enjoying the free electricity for the poorest persons, a 50% cut in bills for other customers. The government should at times credit us with some intelligence. And this is from him. Walanyo Nakwetia says, Ghanaians are reluctant and disobedient and don't want to understand simple lockdown instructions. Let us go according to the instructions and stop the spread of COVID-19. Prince Henry from Kufuria says, good morning, City. The Electoral Commission led by Ms. Jean Mensah should pay her temporary workers who have worked since December 17, 2019 in the District Assembly elections. Let's see. Jones Adoboy from La says, good morning, Godfred. This thing where the vulnerable is being used as a shield to cover up corrupt deals should stop. Let them render proper account of how much they spent so far, because they claim they are going to feed over 400,000 vulnerable people. Other organizations and individuals are also doing same, but we still have a lot of hungry people on the streets. Even in La, people are asking for food. Let's see. Okay. Somebody sent a message that is not related to. Okay, I will try and get to that later on. Please tell. Well, the EC. A lot of people are sending EC related messages. I'm not discussing EC matters this morning, so please hold on for that one. Hold on with that one. Food bought with state money to be distributed to Ghanaians and others who are in need are being shared by members of the MPP on political lines. This shows how evil, selfish, and greedy they are. This is coming from Asanko in Santa Maria. Ray from Ghana says, can the authorities at least control and manage the numbers that congregate in our markets? If we can't stop them, I guess the state is incapable of meeting the basic needs of our people. So let's put in measures to ensure social distancing. And speaking of the markets, yesterday, I don't know if, Fred, you can help me with this. If you can put up the video from the Accra Breweries markets, just to show what people have been doing at the markets from last night. Yes. If you can put that up, I'll be very grateful, but I'll continue reading messages. Good morning, Godfred. I live in Dobro and work in Accra. For 3 weeks, we've been in lockdown. Life, the challenges of life is beginning to take a toll on us. Extending the lockdown will be there. I suggest a curfew and maintenance of social distance. This is Courage Amegbeleto from Insawem, Dobro. Ralph Aye from New Bawe says, we must hasten slowly to lessen the lockdown measures. Let's remember what the World Health Organization board said. The way up could be as dangerous as the way down. That is sound advice, Ralph. I like your text message very much. Let's see. Good morning. With all due respect to the panelists, it's been one grammar after the other. A hungry man simply has no choice. Die of hunger or corona. We should be asking such questions as how to feed people who live from hand to mouth. This is Tay from Dagenham in the
UK. He's also churning out a lot of grammar.
But if you'll be paying attention, you know that there's a lot happening on the ground with regards to that. The implementation might not be perfect, but there's a lot happening in that regard. So that's not really fair comments. Keep the messages coming. 0549 986 996. I'll try and read them. Let's talk about the interventions now. Now, we've had interventions in several factors. We've had water, we've had electricity. We'll deal with it one by one on the implementation. Let's start with the food, though, because initially that was supposed to be for Kayaye, vulnerable people, persons with disabilities, cooked food twice a day being given out in various areas. Now we've had people say, okay, we don't want the cooked food. Give us the cold food, the unprepared ones. We will find ways of dealing with that because we don't even know where the food is being cooked and whatnot. What have you made of the food distribution intervention in particular? Is it working?
Well, thank you once again. But before I go to that, I want to take on two issues from the analysis that have been made from our academic panelists. First, let me say that the issue of the idea brought out by the Minister of Finance on the need for our development partners and our foreign partners to defer some of the conditions underpinning some of the loans and facilities we've taken is a very good idea. In international economics and everywhere, we always set in clauses in such agreements, the force majeure clauses, that in case of a force majeure, the certain conditions have to be waived in order for things to stabilize. In the same breath, Professor William Bamboatin said the same thing, that even in the local economy, we should also do the same. Some personalities like the former president has proposed that the financial institutions can look at, John Mahama has proposed that the financial institutions can look at a 3-month moratorium to defer interests on loans and possibly grants to certain businesses. I think it's a very good idea, and it sits with what the finance minister has said to our international partners. We should be looking at what we can do with certain things. For example, if we've gone for a facility and the facility demands that you should pay X amount every month, and for 3 months now you are not working, there's no way you can pay the main facility and even pay for the interest. So we should all be engaged. At this moment in time, people should be looking at what we can all do in order to facilitate the sustainability of our private economies and also the whole national economy. So I think I agree with that. But the other issue I have to talk about is that before we go off the issue of whether we should continue with the lockdown and the economic impact, we must ask the question whether the lockdown itself has been effective. I heard you saying that we should play you a video.
Yeah, hold on for me. I think the video is ready. Let me just show the video. For those who haven't seen it, this is what happened yesterday at the brewery market. Now, last night at 10 p.m., this was the scene there.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, this is like your regular day market, and this is around the Accra Brewery Market. It's one of the major markets in the city. The police normally close the road during the day, so it becomes hard to go there. And normally by 10 a.m., even those who are allowed to trade are asked to stop. But for some reason yesterday,
they decided to market in the night.
Yesterday was just this, what you are watching on your screens. And every light you see, there's a shop, with the taxis also working and doing their own thing. This is absolutely not right.
You see, and it's not this alone. Charlie, if I tell you that I'm having reports of people being able to leave Accra and go to Kumasi and come back every day, will you believe it?
I'll believe you. I'm not surprised.
They've resorted to a mechanism whereby they are networking very well. This car picks passengers. He has arranged with another car at Nsawam. So they get down, then they tell the security guys they are going to Nsawam.
Yeah.
Then Nsawam car will pick them to Nkoko. Then Nkoko car will pick them to Konongo. Then from Konongo to Kumasi.
I had a story as well of somebody who was in Kumasi. I spoke to the person on Monday, was in Kumasi. Wednesday, I spoke to him, where are you? Oh, I'm in Bolga. How did you leave Kumasi to Bolga? He explained this. He says there's a network of vehicles. You get to Offenso. If you manage to get yourself to Offenso, you buy a ticket. A bus will meet you somewhere in Offenso, pick you up and take you up and move you up and move you on. So people are moving.
Yes. So the movement is still there. So I have said that, you see, if we are looking at just a lockdown of Accra and Greater Kumasi, we may be making a mistake, because people are moving from his constituency to Accra through the coastal line every day. And because the issue is not seen as a national issue, the person may come to Accra, get infected, and may transfer it to a place outside the lockdown areas. That's why some of us have been advocating that maybe the issue of testing must be intensified, like we are doing in other jurisdictions across the world.
Sometimes we are testing. Let's be honest. We are testing.
I'm saying that we are testing, but we are testing people through the contact tracing. But it should be.
That should be the starting point.
No, but you see, I'm also saying that we should go beyond that. We should be free that you can walk in and test. You understand? Because, for example, I am a member of Parliament. I walk into Parliament every morning. I'm tested. You understand? How many people go through the city and they are tested anyway?
Please, what we call testing is not what we experience in Parliament. In Parliament, what is done may be described as triaging, not necessarily testing.
But it's a form of testing.
In testing,
but it's a form of testing.
No, we are talking about.
You can explain that for me.
Yes, we are talking about technical terms here. Okay. In testing, they have.
It's just 1 week removed from losing the post, so don't worry. The expertise is there.
I'm not an expert, but the thing is, I have to learn some of these things. In testing, they have to actually take a swab. Take a sputum of yours, take it to the laboratory, for analysis to see whether you have the virus or not. That's what we call testing.
Okay. So this one, the temperature one, is not part of the testing.
It is called triaging.
Okay.
But it's all part of the testing.
Just to be sure that you are not exhibiting signs of
those are the things.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I'm coming from. That is even more important to me. So all these people are moving up and down. If we are even encouraging that one, we will be able to at least get a sizable number of people that possibly could also give us an indication as to how the virus is moving. But if we're waiting to get people on the contact tracing and only test those people, or people being isolated as a result of a trace and do it, we may be getting a lot of people out of the net. Because as people move around, look, for example, in my constituency, the last time I heard, 2 people at Old Fadama were tested. And for almost about 2 weeks before the results came, they were in the community. And when the results came, positive. It took another 2-3 days before the health officials were able to move those people from the community to the police station. They were at the police station for close about 12 hours before they were moved out of the community. Within that 2 weeks that they were in the community, they use a common bathroom. They sleep 5 people in a room. And do you know what we have done? But what I'm saying that if even we are just testing people and we can see that people could have the symptoms, it helps us in at least expanding our scope of tracing and isolation. That's one.
It's an interesting suggestion you've made, because Honorable Aban, in one of the new proposals that a lot of academics from the African continent are proposing, this seems to be one of them, that a lot of governments must perhaps get to the point of random testing.
Yeah. But that random testing is not just looking at the temperature. It's getting the sample.
Yes, the blood, but do random tests
for analysis.
Yes, get to the point where maybe you can do 10,000 tests a day, 12,000 tests a day.
So see, for example, if you do what we are talking about, the temperature, and the person's temperature is around 38, you understand? Then possibly you could even, it can give you a clue as to the fact that the person may have the symptom. Then you go further. So that's what I'm saying. It's a preventive method that we can adopt in order to be able to, in a way, curb the possible spread of the virus. Because today, as we are talking now, look at the number that is coming up in the eastern region. Do you know what will happen next in another region? You know, eastern region was not a lockdown place. So by this time, I'm saying that why can't we decide that the eastern region should be part of the lockdown?
Because the eastern region's cases, according to the data that we have, were all confined and concentrated in a spot.
But how sure are you that those people have not had? You see, contact tracing in this country is not as foolproof as you would think. Everywhere. So, but in our system where our systems themselves are not that stable, it becomes very difficult. Because, for example, as I'm talking about Ufadama, if we go to do contact tracing of people that these girls have come into contact with for the whole week or 2 weeks, you're going to have thousands of people. Thousands of people. You understand? So it is very difficult for us. Even I, who went to the market and possibly bought something and used this girl as a head porter, I paid her. You know, all these possible, spread. So it is important we look at how we can intensify and extend the mechanisms we are using today in order to trace, test, and treat.
All right. Let's talk about the social interventions.
Yes. I'm very happy.
You give me so much time.
I will not even, as a communications person, I'm also want to go touch an area that yesterday I raised in Parliament when we're discussing, when we're debating the approval of Okoboy. Because at the vetting, I asked them a question on that. I'll be very much concerned about the educational aspect, and I'm very happy that the two dons, the two dons, all left on the note of education. All of them. That is where they said a problem is. In our society, the Ghanaian, the typical Ghanaian, will always do what they can say. This is akame. Before he believes. So, in a situation like this, in a pandemic, some of us who are a bit older, even in cholera outbreaks, there's an intensified public education. Even that time when we even had only one radio station or one TV station, you will see the number. The public is saturated with adverts and education. It's almost like every program junction. It's almost like every minute, every 5 minutes, you have something. We have these information service vans going round. announcing, educating people what we should be doing. I don't see it at this time. I don't see it at the volume of a pandemic. I'm not seeing it. Look, most of the adverts have been, I know, so out of your own patriotic responsibility as a corporate institution, city, you do some of these things yourself. Nobody asks you to do it. You ask for a contribution. When you decided to brand the buses and go out and do that, it's your personal contribution. You decided to brand your vehicles to send them out and go and do public education. If you think that there's adequate public education being done by the ministry, will you have done that?
We are supporting.
Thank you. So because we saw that some radio stations have put up adverts, they have done their own adverts, not at the prompting and not at the instigation of the Minister of Communication or Minister of Information. What we have done so far with this particular this thing is information management. We are not communicating to the people. We are managing information. Kojo Ponkrumah comes to stand there and give us details as to what has been done and bring people comment. That is not communication. Look, the people who went to Choco, I'm very happy an actress, is it Lady Forcing or something, came out and said that the people there is because they are not being taught to a language they understand. We are talking brofo, like somebody just said. How many of those people have we gone to? Have we played educational materials, information to them in the language they understand? How have we used?
Those are happening.
Where? Where? In my constituency? Let's
I'll give you time.
I don't have any problem. I'm telling you what I've seen on the ground and why I think you are not being. Look, how many information service vans are going around? How many? Virtually none. So they are depending on Ghana Education Service directors, education directors pick up that have been parked at the forecourt of the Parliament House for some time now, having carbureted and being used. Not enough. Do we have qualified personnel in those vans educating the people in a language they understand? What are the other education materials that we are? How are we using the local government structure to get assembly members, unit committee members, together with the public health officials within the various districts to get onto focal education? How are we utilizing our spiritual leaders, the traditional authorities, to also go down and talk to the people? Look, you live in certain communities. The man will not listen to anybody. But if that fetish priest within his environment comes to talk to him, he understands in his language. If that imam talks to him, he understands. How are we engaging all these people in order? So we need to build different strategies of communication in order to be able to saturate the people, the public, with education on this pandemic. Other than that, you will see what we saw at the night market that you just showed. We will see what happened at Choco. It will continue. Look, because the people have not experienced it, they don't even feel it. They think it's even not possible. But it's important that we look beyond the issue of methodology. Let's go down to what we used to do. Like the Bible says, we go back to your first love. Let's go back to what we used to do. The traditional method is educating people. Look, I have no problem even getting the Gongombita to go around the communities, tell people what is happening. I had to get my assemblyman a megaphone to go around the alleys in Bukum to be telling people the dangers involved in you staying out. So we must develop various methods of educating and informing the people about the dangers of this pandemic, because people are still not saying it.
Hold on there before you go to that. You're taking a lot of time just doing these things. So let me get Honorable Aban to respond. Then perhaps we can start.
That's why I'm taking a coffee.
Perhaps we can talk about the social interventions. Honorable Aban, you have some responses to the points he's made.
Thank you very much.
On the education, everybody's worried about education.
I'm equally worried, not because we have not educated, but because the people think that this is somebody's else's disease.
Then the education is not working. Okay, if they still think that the education is not working.
You see, in all the things that you played, there's not a single person who says that he has not heard of coronavirus and the effects.
But how has he heard it?
Oh,
because communication is feedback.
Don't worry. right? We must. You told me schemes that people have designed to outwit the system, right? So it means that they know it very, very well. But it is sometimes sheer indiscipline. We should not run away from that. Okay? Because the decision itself is so drastic. Lockdown, which has, apart from the military regimes where we had, let's say, curfews, we have not had these things. And so the decision itself is enough communication. Hey, what's happening? Everybody is asking. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows what is happening, right? The only thing is that, let me first share with you an example, personal example, okay, personal experience. In this lockdown period, in my area there, I just strolled from work. From work, I decided, okay, let me just clean my car at some place. There were these guys who were sitting there. To be honest with you, the social distancing had been observed by them. Then somebody sparked some kind of conversation, probably because they had seen me there, some political conversation. Somebody said, why over there? What can I mean? This, I'm just quoting the person. These are his words, right? Are you saying the person did not know about it?
Yes. It's not.
He knows so much. He knows that
he's heard about it, but he doesn't know about it. There's a difference between knowledge and
I
also
took my time even to explain to them why it was in their own interest.
So you are now educating them.
I did.
So that's all I'm expecting. We should do that more.
I left the place very sad because this guy was still saying that, you know what, let
me give you another example. And then it will help your discussion. For example, last time we saw a video, a girl was on. What did he say? He said, Martin de Soja for Bakrum in Timoko. Do you understand?
I heard that story too.
Yes. So it's not the person has no knowledge about what is happening.
No,
he has no knowledge.
I heard that story too. It is not because that she did not know why the soldiers were there, but the fact that soldiers are there. So let me just.
So that is not indiscipline.
Right. It is indiscipline.
Lack of education. Lack of education.
So I don't want, because you see, like you said, every radio station is doing their bit. Government is doing their bit, and I can assure you that the airwaves, social media is awash.
Don't we need more radio stations?
You even said that in those days when we even had one radio station.
Yes, but then the population is not as big as now.
Look. The thing is, as for the knowledge, as for the effect and all that, people are very much aware. It is just this attitude of, it is certain somewhere, it's not close to me.
Avan.
So that's the whole thing.
Let me go to Franklin. I don't know if he thinks the same, and then we can.
When he comes, I have to continue.
I don't have a problem.
Okay.
Franklin, are you on?
I am on, and it's an interesting conversation.
Yes, on this whole education bit.
Well, look, I'm not too sure that people have not heard about the virus and its devastating effect. I think what is playing out with the attempt of people to break bounds and also to complain that they do not have food to eat, or indeed, the general complaints are born out of real, needs. I'm not too sure people are saying that they do not know about the disease at all. I think they do. I've seen a number of voice
hearing about it is not knowledge.
No, but Honorable, you see what is emerging, even from the video that was shared by Akoto. You may see the video as, well, people are just misbehaving, but people are clamoring for food. It's actually the real issue. Some people have suggested that those who are well-to-do are saying that, keep locking down. But those who do not have real shelter and do not know where the next meal is coming from are asking themselves, if the relatively well-to-do are telling us to stay home, they are afraid of the disease. But we are not just afraid of the disease, but we're also afraid of hunger. And possibly maybe the reason why people may be breaking bounds. So I do not believe that people do not know. There are some who genuinely know, but also want to be mischievous, as in trying to find out whether the lockdown measures are themselves impactful. I mean, that's foolhardiness, and I think those persons should be dealt with. So I'm not entirely sure that people do not really know about what is happening. I think they are reacting. And don't forget, this is not just Ghana. I mean, globally, some persons are beginning to question some of the stay-home lockdown measures. And in some countries, they are beginning to unwind, at least gradually as well. So this is a human factor. This is a human-induced factor. I do not want to say that Ghana, even though we do not have the social safety net, it also means that we do not have the opportunities and the availabilities to ensure that people are educated well enough. I believe the education has gone down really well. I mean, if people will remember the Ebola, because some people have also suggested that, look, for people to stay home 2, 3, 4 weeks, may have psychological impact. And in some regard, I think I could have heard you and your panel on other programs on CTFM discuss the psychological impact of these stay-home measures. And I suspect that that may also be playing out as one of the reasons why people may be breaking bounds. Otherwise, look, this is a pandemic, and I think the least we can do is to respect the protocol.
All right, thank you. Sydney, are you on?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. All right. So, Sydney, good morning. Finally, we have you. You have 10 minutes to say everything.
Okay. Can I continue?
Please go on.
All right. Look, I really believe that we are looking at this thing from a completely wrong angle. We need to critically think about how we can balance the two sides of the equation, the health medical side and the economic side. You cannot do one without the other. But we are not thinking through, in my opinion, about how we live and how we move on a day-to-day basis. You have 80 to 90% of our economy is revolving around the informal sector, which is revolving around the markets, around the lorry parks, and all these other places. So you cannot keep on thinking that the Western world solution of contact tracing, etc., 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 is going to be the solution to the problem. Can you still hear me?
Thank you.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I've been holding on for so long. My battery
No problem,
So,
Sydney. We'll try and
till next week.
No, we'll get you back. We'll get you back.
Sydney, I like what you are saying.
We seem to have lost Sydney Kisley. So, Honorable Aban, the time reverts back to you, and then Nilat, when we return, please, we can let us stay on the social interventions.
Okay, so let us even draw from the example we gave, the massing up of people in the night. Ordinarily, Ghanaians go to the market during the day, right? You think it was for nothing that they went in the night? It was to outwit the police, right? And this would actually be born out of the knowledge they have that, you see, when we go during the day, they won't allow us because of the COVID-19. Right,
but if they understand it, why are there no social distancing protocols? Why are people not wearing masks?
I've already told you that they see it as somebody else's
when they have the
problem.
knowledge. But then perhaps that also buffers the point that he's making, that they know of the disease. But if you know of the disease, you've been told that do A, B, C, D. So even if you want to do the night market, space out, one person here, one person there. When somebody is talking to you, stand at a reasonable distance. That wasn't happening. So then that presupposes they don't know.
They do. I'm telling you,
so why would they do it?
They do, based on the experience that I shared with you. They do. They do know, but they still think that it is way out there. They find it to be very esoteric, something out there that is not getting close to them.
But edit each other.
Yes.
So in a class, you can teach a subject. It's not every member of the class. It's not every student in the class who at the same time grabs whatever you've taught them.
I do understand. I do understand, but I'm saying that the basic level that everybody would know is actually available to everybody. I can assure you. Right? Because the media, social media, traditional media are awash with adverts. Okay?
How many adverts have you placed? Which networks? Which networks?
You see, maybe you are looking at adverts that we have taken there, and people are maybe the media people taking their money and all that.
Yeah, but that is your responsibility.
That has been
at
done.
This time you must have a media plan.
Please. That has been done. And I know that even the money that was voted for the fight, there is actually a media component, right? That has been done. We should not run away from the fact that this has been our attitude, right? We should not run away from it. Okay. Sometimes it is just harsh to tell the real truth the way it is. But some of us have vowed to be that way, and we say it the way it is, right? So I agree with you that there is still some room for further improvement, but we require the cooperation of everybody in this fight. They should not see it as the fight of somebody, right? And we, as the citizenry, are the ones at the receiving end, and then we are hungry and all those kinds of things. Because sometimes the discomfort that they have is even enough for them to go out. I mean, I got somebody who sent me a text message, boredom is killing me, I just want to go out. Right? And this educated person, it's not as though she doesn't know the effect of that, but she thinks that, look, I must live my normal life a little. And so sometimes it is to respond to these dictates of even our lifestyle and all that. I do understand that because of our social structure and the permutation of interactions that we do every time, going to see my uncle and all that, some people still do not want to even adhere to the protocols. It's not as though they don't know. They do.
All right.
Like somebody in your the text messages.
Yes.
Somebody was talking about that we should give account of amount spent and all that.
Would you want to talk about that one this time?
Come again?
Do you think you have to talk about that at this time?
It is critical. You see, sometimes we always talk about the costs of everything without looking at the value of anything.
Okay, that is
right?
That is a point made. I have to take a quick break.
Take a break.
I'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the food distribution and the issues it has brought in the places where it is being distributed. Big issue. Be right back.
Ese ejuma ntimi mami ye nin konkonsa kakra. Ono kwano no, da bi ade foforo ba. Na die ni.
My way insurance you know. We a mobile phone so insurance. Obi atimi ye bi esanse ne bo no. Eda from you yan so be dial *165#. 3 cedi 60 pesos. I copy 15 cedi 60 pesos. Boso me bia when insurance cover.
Papa when you know, meet me bia ma no.
We ma ho a. Wo kwan so ye mani pa ba ko kan ho.
We dey say asempo.
So wo be come my way busuan yi ho a. Na fe mu ni nyina bibia nsi amo anclaim insurance a. Yes asese usika no. Am 5% back. *165# no. What me the savings so? My way insurance. Abamobia. Anya my way. Hasen no way.
Yeah, my way. My way, a product of My Life and MTN Momo.
extra data, extra minutes, and extra unlimited calls. Not just that, even our extra data doesn't expire. You fill up? Simply dial *111# to bundle now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.
Agriculture is the backbone of Ghana. For the prosperity of the Ghanaian economy, it is imperative for the youth to develop interest in agriculture. The Living Fields Agri Challenge provides the opportunity to train and develop the next top agribusiness entrepreneurs. For this maiden edition, we have 12 contestants, 4 production groups. Economic viable and market-oriented vegetables will be cultivated. At least 4 agribusiness startups. Over 300,000 Ghana cedis worth of amazing prizes to be won at the end of the Agri Challenge. Living Fields Agri Challenge is proudly sponsored by media partners. Powered by PB Studios.
Living Fields Agri Challenge every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on City TV.
Welcome back to the big issue, discussing the social interventions. Yes, this time we are sticking with that. You can also send in your message 0549-986-996. I'm doing this with Franklin Kujo, who is on joining us via Zoom. He's at home enjoying himself. And Abuni Lanteva, Member of Parliament for Dodo, and Gumua West MP and Deputy Minister of Communication, Honorable Alexander Aban. And a couple of messages have come in. I'm going to read just this one because it has so that we remember that we're discussing food. Says, please stop sharing the cooked food. I've eaten gari since lockdown, and I can't go out to chase a pack of rice 3 times a day. I'm at a dog call. I'll be happy if the food they bring is raw. Because that is the one he will go out and chase. Yeah, so let's start the food conversation. How about in Latevanda? You are MP of a constituency where the food distribution is quite key.
Yeah.
And you've not been happy. But the government says your complaints are also not valid.
Well, I don't expect them to say anything otherwise because, I'm being frank with you. I am, for example, the reaction of your Minister for Gender, for example, to Honorable Zanata Rawlins's reaction, complaint, and also the Deputy Freda Prempe's reaction to mine. And it tells you that
I have not even followed.
It tells you that these are people who will not take criticism on board. When you are operating in such an environment, a pandemic, and you are doing such social programs, it's better for you to listen more, take a lot more complaints, because you are not the one fully implementing the thing from one line to the other. Along the chain, people that you put at points of implementation may not all do the work the way you would have liked it to be done. So take complaints on board and see how you address those complaints along the line in order to have a good value chain. But if you become reactionary, that every complaint somebody says, you see that complaint with the political eye, instead of the social, these lenses, it becomes difficult. Look, we are MPs, and we are living in some of the most vulnerable areas. We even know the lifestyle and the attitudes of our people. When this thing all started, we all advocated for non-partisan approach to it. Across the world, that's what is happening. So I was expecting that in the general framework of handling this, all of us, the stakeholders we call, I'm a member of the assembly. I was expecting that this is a time the mayor will call all of us, MPs, assembly members, or sit down together. Let's look at how we can implement these things for it to yield the maximum effect the president and the government is looking for. At the end of it all, why? What credit will I take? Nothing. But you are excluded. So people are doing their own thing because of politics. And then reports come, complaints come. As a representative of the people, you cannot keep quiet but to talk about it. One, not because of politics, but because you want the right thing to be done. Because the disease, it's not colored, and it's not by itself censored to a particular color. That I'm coming only for NDC people, I'm coming only for MPP people. So it is important, and the way it spreads, even if you discriminate, you don't know who it will get to. So it is important that we become bipartisan in our approach. That's why right from the beginning, Honorable Akutioda Brakwa and Aaron Ndusu, for example, in Parliament Cello, can we have a national bipartisan committee, like it's happening in the US, for example, to coordinate all activities under this particular pandemic? Well, people ignored it. We were on the ground and we saw that, 80 million cedis have been budgeted for this food. 40, as the minister said, for cooked food, hot meals, and then 40 for raw.
For the which is cold, what they call the cold.
How do you even sit down and talk? Yes, I agree to some extent that some people, because of their living environment, possibly if you give them the raw food, they may not even have the environment to cook it.
Capacity to cook, yes.
Yeah, so it is good that you look at it. But in the same manner, even those people, if you use the local structures effectively, you don't need to give them hot food. You understand me? So, if we are using our assemblies, assembly members, the unit committees, as we've enshrined in our constitution, under our local government structure, it will be possible for us to still get to these people and get them within their own setup to have the food cooked. Because let me take, for example, Odona here. There's an assembly member. There's unit committee for Odona here. We have a lot of vulnerable people. We have a lot of people who don't have shelter. Street people here. If you could use here, they could then locate people who already cook these things within the community. You understand? So all that you need is to give them the raw materials. They do it, and then under the supervision of the unit committee and the people, they could easily go to the houses or the kiosks or where these people are and give the thing to them, than to pack people to a place or ask people to run to a particular place to pick packs. Because we are not using the structures very well. So today we have a system where, because we are doing this, we are not using the structure, we have political entities and political elements have taken over. What's the business?
You have proof of that?
Yes, why not? What's the business of Samia Oku, for example?
No, but Samia Oku went with a group of people. It wasn't just political elements.
Let me tell you this.
I followed that report. He went there with Senor Hosi and all kinds of people.
I don't have, look, Senor Hosi, Samia Oku and the rest can still use the structures on the ground to achieve a result.
Have you made personal distribution yourself?
Yes.
So did you use it?
I use my structures. I use my assembly members and a unit committee.
You go ahead.
You understand?
You're not there yourself?
Never. What am I going to do there?
You go ahead.
In fact, what am I going to do there? I don't need to be there. I was in Parliament. And they did it. I can show you the video. And they did it so effectively. Yesterday I went back for a review. And I was so happy the way it was done. You understand? It's important that you say this morning, one group called me and said, Honorable, thank you. We just finished cooking the rice. And we are distributing to the households. So 25 kilos bag of rice. They said they used 2 big dasen. What do you call it? Cooking pot.
They're the same. It's fine. Everybody understands that one. That is fine.
He hasn't got an English word.
No, that is fine.
That one is not knowledge. That's education.
We all know what that is saying.
Because the white man hasn't got, they don't use those things, so they don't have word for it.
So you go ahead.
So they call it cooking pot.
There's a large cooking pot.
Large cooking pot.
Yes.
You see, so they did that. Like the way we normally do it when you're having Muslim outdoorings and what they do that, then they to the households, they take him to the households. That will prevent all these clamoring and gathering, breaking the social distancing protocols that we've already put in place. So when people talk about it, it's not because people want to achieve any political point, but because people are thinking that there is a way we can do this thing right and do it more effectively without necessarily, facilitating and festering the spread of the disease and the pandemic that we want to fight. Look, for example, as I'm talking to you now, for the past days, I used the stadium back through Blaster Square. Go and see people sitting in the garden, they're waiting for food to be brought to them. They'll be there up to the evening. People gathering around a National Theatre, waiting for food to be brought to them. We can put in place, use the local assemblies very well, so that these who are gathered there, under the Osu Municipal Assembly, get the thing done. Use the within the King Kanwe area, get people who cook, give them the raw materials, let them cook. You pay them just for their services. And then these people can come, they pick their rations and then go away. But then if we don't do that and we continually want to do it ourselves, I heard the gender minister saying that I cook the food and I have to, people came to my house, I have to say, is it a business of the gender minister to cook? Is that a business?
This is doing her part.
What? The gender minister cooking in her house and feeding people? Is that what he's supposed to do? So the gender minister is cooking, the deputy minister is cooking, the local government minister is cooking. For Christ's sake, ministers are not supposed to be cooking. Ministers are supposed to supervise the work of others who are supposed to do these things and make sure that they do it the way it's intended. So I want us to look at this. And is it, what is even...
You have a minute more.
Yeah, what is even killing me is the fact that when you talk, people say you shouldn't talk. But clearly, my constituency...
I said you should not talk.
Oh yes, why not? Oh, why? Paula Dumachi said we shouldn't talk. He said we shouldn't talk. Your gender minister said we shouldn't talk.
He has not taken away your power of speech. That's why you are talking.
Well, I'm going to... He or she cannot take it away from me. Because meaning that you can't take it away from me.
So go ahead and talk.
Look, it's sad that we pack 80-year-old women, 78, 76-year-old women to Accra City engineers, for example. Ask them to come for food. When you go, you say, oh, we come and park a car around Zongole, then we call our party operatives and give the food to them and leave the rest. Even those who run to the vehicle crowd will not be given because they are not people we know. That is what is making this whole thing very, very insensitive and unoperational. Look, the good thing for us is that if we can avoid all these and you can break it down to the various unit committees, because we have unit committees, we have town councils in certain areas.
No, sir,
I want a situation whereby we can tidy up this thing very well. Let's go back to the basics. Let the MMDAs put the political clothing aside. Let's all sit down as a people who will be affected by this virus and then sit down and see how we can work. And we all work together with the common purpose that we're going to do this to make sure that our people are saved from the ramifications of this unfortunate situation that have
become. Thank you very much, Nila Antivandapoy. Anna.
Thank you. Talking about that is saying, I'm going to say something in French that has to do with that saying. It is rendered this way: Kutu catcher that is saying then Hutuntu.
Oh,
right.
What's carrying the kettle black?
Okay.
Well, it doesn't apply to me more.
No, I'm going to explain why I have used this. You know, you are complaining about partisanship in this whole exercise. I will be the first person, okay, to condemn any partisanship in this matter. At all, where we have reached, I think I was one of the first people to respond to the composition of party people by former President John Dramani Mahama, okay, as, if I may say, a para-COVID-19 response team. That was the beginning of the partisanship in this matter.
No, you are getting it wrong.
Let him make his point.
People with expertise that you can depend
Take your
on.
time. Take your time.
Let him make his point.
Take your time. I remember very well, at that time I was Deputy Minister for Health. And soon after that, there was a question. I had not even sought any clearance from higher authority. But off the cuff, I realized that that move was wrong. And that people could come, regardless of their political color, as individuals, for us to move on, so that we would bring all the partisanship in this matter.
Did you extend invitation to anybody?
We did not need to extend invitation.
What are you talking about?
The invitation had already been extended to all Ghanaians to assist.
How?
Let him make his point.
When City TV decided, or when City FM Group decided to put together buses just to deal with that shortfall.
It's about expertise.
Take your time. Take your time. We are talking about expertise.
Yes.
We are talking about resources. Okay. You may not necessarily talk about us at now where we are. We require those who have the expertise.
Yes.
We also require those who have resources that they can put at the disposal of those experts, right? And I don't think those who came to make donations and all that were invited. Secondly, or were personally invited. Secondly, they came in as Ghanaians, and that's where we should be. That's what should be the case. And so if we're talking about partisanship, I think you should first look at how you started in the first place. But let us even go beyond that, okay, and come to the real implementation of the thing. I have not followed whatever discussions went on between you and you mentioned somebody else, the Deputy Minister for
Gender. Well, there are 6 MPs who have raised issues.
Yes. I also do not know, I've also not read, I think there was some banter between Dr. Rawlings and Paul Adumotri.
That's on a different side.
Okay. I think it all had to do with this thing. Or
yes.
Whatever it is, for me, I think all those things should be described as very unfortunate.
Thank you.
Because we should not get to a point where we have to allow partisanship into this. But you see, I watched some little video of Dr. Rawlings distributing some things. And the wording that went with it, right, seemed to suggest that government had failed and that they were filling in or something like that. Sometimes our natural instincts may push us to try and build political or partisan capital out of this. It's natural. But we must have it at the back of our mind that it is not time for it. And I remember very well saying this clearly. Now about massing up of people to come for food, sometimes we should let academic possibilities stay back, okay, and deal with practical realities. So from here, I will then ask a question. Us, as parliamentarians, with where we have got to in terms of education and all that, if we should even go for budget retreats, where we all go together, thereafter, or if we go for any big program where all of us are part of it, thereafter, if we are going for food, the question is, don't you even queue and try to, it's natural. Don't you even queue and try to outstage each other?
No, but that time there is no pandemic.
But under the circumstances, let me give you an example.
That's what I'm saying.
You calm down. Let me give you an example. For instance, I've seen, this is happening in a lot of African countries. I've seen the one that South Africa did, for instance. What they simply did was take one of the biggest stadiums in Johannesburg. It's like 90,000 people. Vulnerable people have been told that in the morning, you can't come in. Take one of the seats in the stands. Once you are seated, you will get food at this time. 4 p.m. Show up, sit down. This is 90,000 seater. I don't think that 90,000 it will be filled.
You have not understood.
And then they give the food.
What I'm saying is that
there's no queue. There is no heckling.
What I'm saying is that it is in response of our natural sentiment that these things do happen.
No, I disagree. I think it's the poor organization.
Take your time. Why don't you want me to land? I'm just telling you how naturally we behave, okay? And admit that probably if we had done it differently, so you should allow me to just
make the point.
Exactly, because I have already told you that
I wish your colleagues will be responding to such, operational critiques just like we are doing.
Oh,
he's different. You let him go.
I'm me.
Yes.
Let us go on. You see, what I'm saying is this. it is disheartening because I have seen a few of those videos when we have told people to practice social distancing, okay, and because of food and the way we are distributing it, would get people to mass up, to destroy or to defeat the very purpose for which we had asked them to create the social distancing.
Did you see that Sokwa one?
I think I've seen that one.
I've seen that video.
And then yesterday there was
not good.
That one was there was another one from Kwada Swagrik.
Okay, so I do not know how those criticisms were couched, right? But whatever it is, I think our people should take the grain out of those criticisms and leave the chaff, right? The chaff of partisanship and all that, and then see if those suggestions and criticisms have any merit in them, so that we improve. Because for me, as somebody who was part of the real fight, I'll feel very, very scandalized if in the final analysis we see that people even contracted the disease during the period that they were fighting for food.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so let's take the criticisms on board and then make sure that we devise strategies in such a manner that we can still achieve the two ends, getting them the food and still maintaining appropriate distancing between them. Okay. It is only then that we will see that, yes, we are fighting it well. Okay? Right. That is my response to that. Okay. But this issue about people saying that, oh, you are not a party person, so go away and all that. If they have evidence of it.
Yes, that's what I'm asking him.
If they have proof. Evidence of it, then let us even condemn it quickly. Right?
But so far they haven't shown any.
If they don't, they should not press partisan buttons.
When there are none to be pressed.
Exactly.
All right.
But otherwise, you start drawing wedges in this, and you will lose out in the final analysis.
All right. Thank you very much. Franklin, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, I'll give you 5 minutes on this, and then I'll start with you when we return from our break on the electricity and water. So you take the food for 5 minutes, and then we take a break.
But you know, I saw Franklin's picture. He put it on the platform. Franklin,
I did not speaking to you.
I saw you said when you won the you won an essay competition, and also 21 years ago, the difference. Charlie has been remarkable.
Well,
are you really sure you were the one who was sitting in the gallery there?
Yeah, drinking
All right, Franklin, go ahead.
Let me just say that, look, let's not also discount the fact that we are in an election season. And so some of the suggestions about partisanship with this matter could also not be discounted at all. I've seen some imagery yesterday, I think posted by some government appointees, almost laying claim to almost all the entire thing, the interventions that have been done so far, almost discounting the private sector fund and all of that, the private sector support and all of that as well, and claiming it as if it is only the government that has achieved. So some of these concerns are quite legitimate. I must also add that the opposition must also be quite responsible when they make these claims as well, to go further to provide evidence. But let me just say that what was also very interesting at the beginning of these seemingly bipartisan approach to gathering resources to fight this is unfortunately being turned into some political fight. And the reasons are not far-fetched. You see, Ato Coleman, who happens to be a fellow of Imani, who happens to be a former country director for Plan International in Sierra Leone, who was actually neck deep in the battle against Ebola, had suggested a number of steps when it comes to sharing of food. In fact, he did say that it was better to use the World Food Programme, faith-based organizations and NGOs that have expertise in doing this, in order for the military, and even if we want, we can ask the military to help us in distributing the food. Because there are, essentially because we want to avoid this political posturing and then the accusations and counter-accusations of political hijacking of the food. So I think that there was some merit in that particular suggestion. I do not know why that has not been taken on board. That's not to discount the fact that NADMO could do its work. But given the way we politicize institutions in this country, it was almost easy for us to begin to hear these kinds of accusations anyway. So I thought that, look, we missed an opportunity. If it is still ongoing, rather than just have NADMO alone do this, maybe they could partner with those who have expertise in doing this stuff. And then with the help of the military or any service person or any service that we believe can help us, so that we do it quite well. Because trust me, this is not going to go away. Assuming tomorrow the president comes and says that other parts of the country must also now experience some form of lockdown, we are going to still see these kinds of accusations. I thought that one of the suggestions the former president made was also quite useful. I think he exhibited it in the approach he adopted in sharing his so-called 20,000 household feeding program. But I suspect that one of the lessons I took away from that approach was to use traditional authorities, religious groups as well, because they more than ever are bulwarks against these kinds of partisanship and indeed may ensure some sort of equity. But more important is also to ensure the protocols around this disease, which is social distancing. So we wasted an opportunity, but I still think we can salvage ourselves from the needless partisanship. And I do hope that we do not have to come back next week discussing the partisan nature of sharing food. Already, food itself is an expensive commodity to come by. So if it is being shared in this pandemic situation and there's any iota of truth, and the fact that it is being shared according to party lines, then we have actually failed. But don't forget that the interventions being made are appropriations of our taxes, and I think it had to be used in a manner that is seen to benefit everybody.
What have you made of those we've spoken to who have also said that, that debate between give us cold food and not cooked food, because people normally like to know where their food is coming from, and they can cook something that they can also preserve, because the plate of food is a one-off. Some might also feel that, okay, what if I'm hungry in the middle of the night and I want something small? What do I do with that? What have you made of that particular
It's an interesting conversation, and it goes to underlie the conversations around when interventions are made on behalf of the poor. Sometimes we suggest that the poor do not know what they want. My lessons from this is that they already know and probably were eating anyway, and they already know how they cook their food. Admittedly, there are some who will not cook, but that goes to the heart of targeting. How do you differentiate between those who will never cook or will not have the opportunity to cook from those who genuinely would want to take the raw material or the raw food and cook? It also goes to the heart of procurement. You see, now we are being told, for instance, that I don't know if the figure ahead was right. Honorable Aban, you can confirm that. Is it 2 million cedis a day that is being spent on cooking food?
Yeah, that's what NADMO said, 2 million a day.
Well, in order to lessen the suspicions, it is much better to distribute even whole foods, which can be counted, than to be distributing cooked food, because then we do not know the value of the cooked food. I mean, it's very difficult to tell. But that's not to suggest that even when you are distributing whole foods, people cannot shortchange that. I think the reasons why people are deeply suspicious about the state in everything that it does, even when it appears to be doing good, Honorable Abad, is that it's not necessarily the question about questioning the cost of everything and knowing the value of nothing. It's the fact that we've been shortchanged many times. And I always say that politicians like chaos.
That's right.
And
That's why you don't get the right people in politics, because everybody seems to be like a thief or something like that.
Let's hear Franklin. Franklin, finish.
Yes, unfortunately. Because again, the procurement issues surrounding these things must also be made known to everybody. So I do not have any magic wand to suggest that when we do distribute raw foods, it may be better than distributing cooked food. It appears, though, that distributing raw food after every 3 or 1 after a week may be more sensible than to be distributing cooked food every day. Because if you distribute raw food, a bag of 5 kg of rice should take possibly 2 weeks or so. So then we also space the periods or the times within which we distribute the food. I think we can do that, and that can also help with accountability.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Franklin. We'll take another break. When we return, we will deal with the electricity and water part, because that has also proven to be quite difficult to implement on the social intervention side. I also take messages that have come through. The big issue. We'll be right back.
Ese adwuma ntimi mami ye nin konkonsa kakra. Ono kwano no, da bi ade foforo ba. Na die ni.
My way insurance, you know. We a mobile phone so insurance. Obi atimi ye bi, esanse ne bo no. Eda from you yan so be dial *165#. 3 cedi 60 pesos. I copy 15 cedi 60 pesos. What's me bia? When your insurance cover?
You papa when you know, meet me bia man.
Oh ya man ho a. Wo kwan so ye mani papa akọ ho.
We dey say asempo.
So wo be come my way busuan yi ho a. Na fe mu ni nyina bibia nsi amo anclaim insurance. Yes asese usika no. I'm a 5% back. *165#. What me the year savings so? My way insurance. Abamobia. Anya my way. I said no way.
My Way, a product of My Life and MTN Momo.
Welcome back to the big issue. We are entering the final phase of the conversation. Let me just take a couple of messages that have come through, then we can talk about the electricity subvention. The government says they're going to spend 1 billion Ghana cedis in energy relief package in the wake of the COVID-19. People are still asking questions. They don't really understand how it's going to work. The energy minister has tried to explain how the intervention is going to work. Water as well. Some communities say they are getting water, they're not getting water. People who sell water are refusing to sell the water at reduced prices or even give it to them for free. All kinds of things are happening. But just one message. This one says, Honorable Nina Tevada, this for. He says, I'm a nurse and I want to thank you for your views on mass testing. I work at the border community post. For the past few days, my municipal health directory has assigned nurses to work with the Ghana Immigration Service checkpoint. My brother, Ghana is losing people. Ghana is loose. People are still coming into the Upper West region from lockdown areas with high body temperatures, and we are facing a lot of challenges, even checking just basic temperature. This is a nurse from one of the border posts. Honorable, you can carry this message on. Ben from Aguna Swedro says, good morning to Lawyer Aban. I think political insanity is killing us as a nation with regards to food sharing and incentives to the vulnerable. It shouldn't be seen in any political light. Okay, somebody's also asking me to direct some messages to Mr. Eric Nananipa, the receiver, because in these hard times,
one of the most wonderful footballers I've ever seen.
The receiver?
Nipa.
Really?
Wow.
Okay.
One of the best defenders. Refused to play back for Accra, or refused to play for Great Olympics.
Wow.
When we were at the university.
Okay.
Yes, all the teams, even Kotoko were after him.
Wow. This is some good information. I'm going to use it against him next time he's here.
I saw him the last time and he's bloated. I said, Eric, what is wrong with you?
Okay, so lockdown is necessary, but then what is the definition of vulnerability now? Private workers, especially those who receive minute amounts of monies for the lockdown, might have finished their monies by now. I'll plead that assembly members the grounds are used on the grounds, and their views must be considered critically. Thank you very much. This is Samuel Kwe from Bawe Top Base. Okay. Let's see. Interesting times. Economic impact of the 3 weeks of the lockdown. I'm a wage earner. When you look at my source of income and you don't support me, it means you are just changing the method by which I will die. Never will I voluntarily pay income tax again. JSA, stop that. He's sending this from Dan Suman. Rashid Gora from Kubori says, I think the partial lockdown should be extended to all the affected regions to help reduce the spread. Okay, so I will go back to Franklin and then come back to Honorable Aban and Honorable Neil Antivandapoy on.
No, I thought you asked me, you want me to make this point. So
I'll not let you make any points.
No, Akuto, it's very serious. Look,
okay, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, I'm saying that.
Then I go to Franklin for water.
If we are feeding 40,000 households,
yes,
and they say it's costing us 2 million cedis a day, what it means that the food they are giving out there, a pack is approximately 50 cedis. 50 cedis. That's 50 pesos kenke and the 4 Kita schoolboys. Or that so-called yellow wache and that pepper. Plus 1 egg. 50 cedis. If let's consider that they pay labor 20 cedis, it means that food cost. How much is papaya?
It's all right.
Let me respond quickly. Because you said household. Household is not an individual.
Oh. Please, no, but you said 40,000 households. Please. I'm just using the 40,000. I'm just using the 40,000.
Yes, households.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then you are reducing households to represent just a pack.
But that's what they do. They give a pack to a house. That's what they do.
I'll have to find out.
Okay, but please check on that.
Thank God you use the word household.
Franklin, why are you laughing? Franklin, could you?
So I'll just look at it. Because you use the word household.
An analogy of one pack for a household. Quite intriguing. I'm not too sure that is the case. I suspect.
But Franklin,
what it does mean is that Honorable Nilante, I would think that these are valid questions, by the way, because we need to know the number of persons being affected. I think the number of persons was said to be 400,000. How they came about that, I suspect the statistical service people may have helped. But it's important to know who these persons really are, which is why sometimes it is preferable if you had a cheat system where you had a voucher system where these persons are given and then they redeem the vouchers irrespective of who is doing the cooking. I think this approach also works better.
Okay.
So that you're able to count the vouchers, and then you're able to, if a voucher costs maybe 1 cedi, then we know exactly how many vouchers have been given. That way, the suspicions are lessened.
All right.
I have to say something quickly before. I think you were asking me.
Yes, because I want you to talk about the implementation of the electricity relief and the water one, which is very key. You live in an area where water is a problem.
Well, see, once again, I'll defer to the authorities themselves, because listening to the Ghana Water company people, they seem to be suggesting that, well, if government wants to bear the brunt in terms of the budgetary allocation, well, they have no problems with it. But they also sounded the tone subtly that they may be burdened, because given the time government may redeem its own pledges, there may be problems. I do not know whether by water distribution to people, it only means running pipes, only taps or taps that have running water. That's another conversation itself. Then there's another layer of reaching outliers or outskirts of the town that are not connected to the mains. Is it using water tankers? I think some people still complain that they are not getting the water in time, and even when they are getting them, they are being asked to pay. I suspect some people believe that they cannot wait until the government comes to do these redeem its own pledges. So the water bit is a bit confounding, but as the relief has been announced, I suspect the authorities have to make sure that everyone is served, at least the communities that have water or the immediate environs that are supposed to be reached if this water happened. I haven't seen any. I've not asked for any because I have my own water system. I suspect many do. And I suspect that this is where targeting also comes in. You want to target properly to areas where there's the need, because water is crucial at this particular stage. The electricity bit is a bit interesting as well. I think that you were asking questions during your show during the week that we were expecting the ECG, the people to come and tell you exactly how this will be done.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you were successful.
No.
If you were not, then it's also confounding to me as well. But essentially, I've heard the energy minister suggest that, well, for prepaid meters or so, the prepaid users, the relief would be felt, I think, in May or so.
In May, yes.
In May, yeah. So, however it is, that's very easy to do because people buy electricity these days anyway, and they are postpaid and prepaid customers, so it should be easier to do that. The impact on the economy is where we should also be quite cautious, because there's a 1 billion CD figure that we mentioned. I think after all of this is done, after all these madness with the virus is over, we should be able to account exactly how much these interventions actually cost us. That way we'll know whether the reliefs we are seeking from the likes of the Bretton Woods institutions are going to be used profitably and indeed in a very accountable way. But look, the pandemic is not over, and so while we still urge caution in the way we distribute some of these interventions or social interventions, we should also be sure that they are surgically made in such a way that the right people are benefiting, and then we account eventually. I would think that we're very lucky, in fact, as the finance minister suggested in that famous Financial Times article, to have gotten a $3 billion deal from the private sector. It is very instructive. Going forward, how we manage what we've already have received is very instructive. So while we want to intervene and help people, we should be careful how we do the pledge so that we are not found wanting, because other countries are closing in they are closing their shops in a way. If you found an article that suggested that Italy wasn't helped by the European Union,
yes,
and they were apologizing because they couldn't help, it was not because probably there was no money, but it was also because there was a pressure on the systems that could quickly turn around even the money that they had to give reliefs. America is already cutting funding to the WHO, and I suspect that aid packages to almost every part of the world would be put under secondary attention right now. Some of us have already had certain partners postpone indefinitely the relationship we have with them, and it's already biting as well. So I think it's important that just as we are being able to get up our loins, we should also encourage the government to look at the crystal ball, to look into the crystal ball and look at areas that they can salvage some of the wastage. And I think we've made these conversations, we've made these suggestions ad infinitum. I suspect the finance minister wants us to be seen as one of the countries that should benefit from total debt relief. I disagree. I think other countries are far less poorer than us, are far more poorer than us. We cannot compare ourselves to Liberia, Sierra Leone, Mozambique, Sao Tome, Togo, and the rest. We are way beyond those countries, which means that we have a lot of fat we can cut back. I don't know whether the 100 million cathedral project is still on. At this stage where people are cutting back and making sure that they are diverting critical funds into critical infrastructure, it will be unconscionable for projects like the EC's register, $150 million to continue, and the private sector funding, which is being directed to the cathedral, should continue. I think God has left us right now, and I think that cathedral can be converted into a piece that would serve God's purpose, as in doing this to their fellow man, and that would mean that you've done the best for God.
Thank you very much, Franklin. Honorable Aban, water and electricity, and then we end with Honorable Nilanti Vanderpool.
Thank you very much. You realize that obviously with the lockdown and economic fortunes of people being affected by it, obviously it is going to be difficult for them to be able to pay all these bills, right? So in the wisdom of the government, there was a need for these kind of reliefs to be given to the citizenry, right? So the president did announce that we're going to have, especially for those lifeline electricity consumers, they're not going to pay anything for the next 3 months. And then water should also be given for free for the next 3 months. Of course, once it has come as a matter of policy, those who are directly in charge of the various sectors will have to then put together the practical implementation of these policies. And it is in explanation of these steps that the energy minister told Ghanaians that is going to cost about $1 billion in doing that. I think that for me, looking at our consumption and taking it from the meters and all those kind of things, they should be able to conveniently calculate it and give it.
People feel it.
I know that there are others who are asking that what about the areas that do not have electricity at all, right? What about people who do not, or who even have electricity but for other reasons are not getting the supply of electricity? How are they going to get it and all that, right? We should understand that obviously if such relief is going, it is going to the people who are using it, right? There are some villages who are not on the national grid. I don't think that because there's that relief, we will say that, okay, they must also be given something. It is for a certain purpose, right? I know such questions will come. And this is where sometimes I get a little sad when...
Are you reading my mind or something? You are looking at my face and saying this. Why?
I'm here with you. You see, I get a little sad when people try to get themselves out of the practical realities and try to create a lot of, if I say, possibilities that we will not be able to achieve. Now, it appears to me that in this country, when something is going to be given for free, okay, as an intervention to deal with a certain defect, a certain problem, everybody immediately put themselves in that defect category, if I should put it that way. Example I'm going to give is before the introduction of Get Fund, right? It has been heralded by the introduction of what we call the facility user fees. So we had the academic facility user fee, the residential facility user fee, right? Then the government, the NDC government at that time realized that no, its economic impact would be too devastating for students who are coming from very poor families, right, including me. So they decided to come out with a form for people to fill, and then they would be able to find a way of assisting the poor ones. Even those our friends who were using cars on campus all filled. Everybody filled, and we defeated the purpose. The same thing is playing out here. There are people who may not necessarily be in need at all, okay, but they would want to put themselves in that. But at least, as for electricity, it is even easy to calculate and all that. There are some people who may not necessarily even have need for relief, but they will go for it. Thankfully, as for electricity, as for water, I'm sure we'll all get it as has been given. But let us, through this, learn sometimes to lend a hand and also forbear for others to come up
and get to our level. Because when you are good and I'm good, society is good.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah. First, let me say this. It's interesting.
I'm still working your mass.
No, he has copious notes here. I don't know what he's going to say. Are you going to write some examples?
Let him flow.
Probably I should help you.
I don't know how far this is true, but from the Ghana Water Company analysis, people within the lockdown areas who stand to benefit from this water is just about 18%. Those are people who directly depend on Ghana Water Company, 18%. Yeah. So in effect, this is not really. Frankie Jogo just said he doesn't depend on this service. I'm sure maybe you would use borehole.
So he doesn't need it.
Yeah. So I'm saying that majority of people, but the people who need it most, like people within my constituency, for the past 2-3 months, we're not getting water in my constituency. Every week I have to buy tankers, 15 tankers to serve the constituency. You understand? Up to today, they don't get in the water. But those are the most vulnerable people who need this. So assuming the person doesn't have water company meter, the person doesn't get access to water in the first place. Those are the people who really need this, as Abad is saying. And I will be expecting government to extend the services to these people. But you see them picking the water and taking the water to certain areas where those services, and they said private people should buy fuel into their vehicle and go and give the water to the people for free. When are they going to get the money for the fuel?
Yeah, that's a significant problem. So those people are saying they won't do it.
Yes. Second, let me go to electricity. You are a poor young lady doing hairdressing. You understand? Lockdown, 1 month. You work. You are not.
But you are home.
You are home. You are paying 1 bob.
No, not necessarily.
No. I'm looking at the factual realities on the ground. So, what impact would this really make on the person?
That's a significant one.
Well, I don't really. What I'm saying that, you see, if you are looking at
did the former president not suggest these things?
Yes, he suggested it. I'm saying it's the practicality. How to implement these things are what I'm talking about here. I was expecting that these people live in households.
That's what he's coming.
I'm coming. So if you say electricity free for people, then somebody comes up and said those who are owing bills will not pay for this month. Will not pay. When did the consumption for that debt, indebtedness begin? When did it end? Is it the period of this COVID? It's something significant we have to look at.
Are you suggesting that those people should not pay their bills?
I'm saying, what I'm saying that if from March I've not worked, you understand? A minister tells me that the thing will take effect from May. It means that I'm going to pay for March. And I'm saying you will not be fair in the implementation of this. The
so
other aspect,
tell me how,
that's
if
how
you were a prepaid customer, okay, how, if you were in government and you were dealing with a prepaid customer, how were you going to do that? Tell us, help us.
The prepaid customer just goes to buy the unit. He goes to buy the unit. Even though I have a limited knowledge in IT, what I would say is that it's easy for him if he's buying 50 cedis, and to be used for a month. It's easy for that 50 cedis to say that because of this, the 50 cedis will give you. No, the 50 cedis could take you for 2 months. It becomes so easier.
All right.
You understand? My other point is that, look, the world over, frontline workers, as far as this pandemic is concerned, are being seriously. If you limit benefit to frontline workers within the health sector, or even that one, those who are providing essential services for this particular COVID, you are not serving purpose. What about the security personnel? What about the firemen? Go to US, for example. They have high numbers of fire personnel dying as a result of COVID. You are that. We've roped them in. They're working directly with the people. within all this, it is essential that we sit down and look at all categories of frontline workers who possibly be affected. Because even in the health sector, I've seen other health workers complaining that the laborer who cleans the ward, who cleans the seats, the one who takes the temperature,
the one who the laundry.
Yes, all of them. So we must look at a situation where all these things will affect many more people, because at the end of it all, it's not just about those.
It fails to become an incentive then.
No, you see,
everybody's going to get.
I'm not saying me.
The point is what but let me take a message. Rujumba Abdul Rashid says he's watching us all the way from Uganda. Wow. Okay, how's Kampala? It says people have nothing to eat. They should let people go out and look for food. Otherwise, we are all going to die. That is what he is saying. Honorable Aban is always a little sad with nearly everything. It's one message that has come in.
Who is that?
And let's see. Okay, let me just take a few more and then we will. Okay. Also, on the issue of free water and electricity, we are yet to enjoy. We still pay when we fetch water from the vendors, and as for electricity, nothing has changed. We will still pay for electricity like we did in the past. Nothing has indeed changed. And as Boatin Safo says, in fact, things are getting worse day in, day out, especially food. Can you imagine? I went to the market to get some foodstuffs, and to my surprise, plantain costs 3 cedis per one. In these hard times, please, the government needs to do something about food prices. Kujo from Oyara classes, I think the subsidy on electric consumption goes to favor the rich. If someone's consumption is 500 Ghana cedis a month, the subsidy is 250 Ghana cedis against someone consuming 100 Ghana cedis.
An old lady gave me this
point. Subsidy is 50 Ghana cedis.
An old lady gave me this point. He said one of the ways we could have reduced this is to use the buffer stock and the old Ghana food distribution mechanism very well now. That government could have agencies that take care of the plantain, and then rather give it out. That will reduce the pricing and everything.
Okay. Robert from Sheffield says, we can now watch you from the north of England, City FM. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Robert. Keep watching. I hope you're staying safe in the UK. We know how hard things are there. We always leave out the total indiscipline in the Ghanaian individual, from the politician down to Joe Block. Even some situations are irresponsible. The media must be bold to address the ordinary Ghanaian self-indiscipline and stop blaming government for every anomaly. This is Bafo from Tema. We should not argue as if the education has achieved its full purpose. How many of these guys listen to radio or watch TV? Government needs to do more on the education, please. Okay, so looks like my Minister of Economics Department at the University of Ghana and Dr. Gordon Abeka and Nkrumah, health economist and also a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Franklin Kujo, president of Imani